But if a man raise his hand, hell no. Hell no.
Great.
Thank you.
Fantastic job. Welcome back to another episode of Showgays Movie Musical Podcast, where we talk about things that are currently in the movie theaters.
Famously, that's all
we really ever discuss. I think it's important.
The current
to remember.
events, current pop culture podcast.
Yeah,
Yes.
Zeitgeist.
We only do movies that are currently in theaters. So next week we will be doing Aquaman.
Famous movie.
Very
We could do Wonka. That's also in the movie theaters, and it is a musical. And allegedly,
it's a bit of
I've heard it's good.
I've heard it's pretty good. I've heard some mixed reviews, but it's kind of a season for musicals all of a sudden. We love it.
Yeah, tis the season. That's what they really mean when they say that. I don't know if anybody ever knew. RJ, you're well?
Yeah, I'm doing okay.
Good. Molly, you're well?
You well?
I'm well.
Great. Let's move on.
Great. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't click it. Whose turn is it?
It is Molly's.
Oh,
I don't think it is.
Oh,
it's
Adam.
the summary order.
I thought I did umbrellas because I went off the cuff.
You did do umbrellas, but I don't know why, because your name is not next to umbrellas. Your name is next to this one.
We thought umbrella.
Okay, but then if we're going down the list, then it would be RJ. So
Oh no.
RJ,
the only
you're the
person
one
who's
who has...
definitely not is me.
Great.
Oh God, I'm gonna misspeak.
Well,
And this is not the movie to misspeak on. So keep that. Oh God. Okay. I'm gonna do my best.
okay. RJ, that's all we can ask for, really.
Yeah.
In a minute or less, please summarize the 2023 film, The Color Purple, and your time starts now.
Okay. Sister Celie and Nettie live in I think turn of century Georgia, 1904-ish. The movie will span across Celie's time in her life. She, at the start of the movie, she gives birth to a second child that is given away. There is a man named Mr. who is kind of like a vagrant in the town, but has like a huge plot of land that Nettie and Celie's dad agrees for Mr. to marry Celie. So Celie lives with Mr. and raises his children. Nettie also, because their father tries to harass Nettie. Nettie also runs away and lives with Celie and Mr. But then Mr. tries to do it and Nettie refuses. So Nettie runs away. Or Nettie is kicked out, separating the two sisters, and Celie kind of is forced to live her life alone without like the one person that truly cares for her, which is Nettie. She goes through she goes through life with Mr. Mr. has a mistress named Shug Avery, who is a blues singer, and kind of like opens Celie's eyes to basically like love and what it means to be cared for again. That has given her enough strength to want to kind of leave with her and start her own life away from Mr. Oh my God. And then later on, she realizes that her father actually wasn't her father, but she is passed down the store that he used to run. She ends up creating her own like tailor shop with it. And Mr. comes back to try and see if they can kind of make amends, but Celie does not. And she sings her song "I'm Here," which kind of proves that like she can be independent. I really focus on just Celie's story. There's also a story about obviously Nettie coming back and reuniting with Celie. And then there's also the story of Harpo, who is Mr. Son, Harpo's wife, Sophia, who also becomes a very a strong character that helps Celie kind of really ground her in kind of love and strength to help Celie kind of be her own person as well.
I don't know why you phrased it as there's also the story of Nettie coming back, as if that's not just the next thing that happens in the plot. But
I know, I got so intimidated by.
Okay,
there is no world in which I would want to summarize this film in a minute or less. So
yeah, it's hard to summarize in a minute or less because I think we will talk about all these characters, so we want to make you know about it. I think the thing you forgot to say at the beginning is that Celie is giving birth to her second child. She's still a teenager, and her father is the father of this child.
Yes.
Of both of her children.
Both of them.
So, yeah. So she's been sexually abused by her father, who we later learn is actually her stepfather. So I don't know, a little bit better, I guess, but still not good. She has been abused since she was a child. We were made to understand. And then goes directly into this abusive relationship with a husband. And so it's a story of her coming out of a history of being abused by men and finding solace in other women. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's a rollicking romp of a film. RJ, since I know that you do have somewhat of a history with this musical, what is your history with The Color Purple?
I remember seeing when the year it came out on Broadway, the year of the Tonys, they had a performance of the original cast doing Hell No. And I was like, this is a fun song. I love it. I want to say either the next year or the year after, they had Fantasia perform because she had been the replacement for Celie. And she had performed I'm Here, which I remember being like, that's so funny that they make the replacement cast perform, because I think they did it for Book of Mormon too. Like the second year of Book of Mormon, they performed in the Tonys. So
sorry, can I ask, did Fantasia replace Cynthia Erivo, or was Cynthia Erivo a different production?
So Cynthia Erivo was the revival production, which was a few years.
It was 10 years later. It was 2015.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So obviously being an American Idol girly, I knew Fantasia's life. And so I loved seeing her on Broadway. That performance of her singing I'm Here at the Tonys is like one of my favorite.
Fantasia also, wasn't her story on American Idol that she was like a young mom too?
Yes, she was 19 and she already had like a little girl. And so that was her whole thing, was that she wanted to win American Idol to provide for her daughter.
Yeah, she became pregnant at 16.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and then since then I've just listened. And then yes, the revival production with Cynthia Erivo also had Danielle Brooks play Sophia, and it had Jennifer Hudson play Shug Avery. Also one of my beloved American Idol girls, all from season 3.
Yeah.
And so that performance of I'm Here by Cynthia Erivo on the Tonys is probably also one of the best Tony performances of all time.
Yeah.
So it is just like everyone I feel like knows I'm Here. Like that's like the song that if you know The Color Purple, the musical, that is the song that you know. So, and I think I would say the star maker of Cynthia Erivo, like because she did this on Broadway, she became like a massive star, and she is.
Yeah. Molly?
Color Purple?
This is one of those like movies/books that you kind of know about, but I like never actually ended up watching it. So I had a sense of the plot because I think I looked up, I wanted to listen to the music of the Broadway show. And so I looked it up to have enough context in order to listen to the songs and get what they were about. And I watched Cynthia Erivo's performance of I'm Here. So I wanted to understand. Yeah. But I did actually, speaking of Fantasia and American Idol, the one season of American Idol that I actually did watch start to finish was Fantasia's season. So I definitely know her. Yeah. And I was excited that she was in this movie because I know that she had like a tough time after winning American Idol, and there was like stops and starts to her career and stuff. I don't know the details of it, but
she had like
I'm glad she's headlining a film.
She had like different things. That she had a Lifetime original movie about her life, the story of Fantasia, and she played herself.
Yeah.
And I think Cheryl Lee Ralph was her mom.
Iconic.
And and she also, from what I remember, was in the running for Effie for the Dreamgirls movie. It was between her and Jennifer Hudson, and they went with Jennifer Hudson. And so I remember there was a lot of like fake hullabaloo, obviously, of like, she's bitter, they're bitter, but they've since kind of said like, no, I always felt Fantasia's come out and said like, I just felt like that role was perfect for Jennifer. And like, it feels really full circle to have kind of one of her biggest breaks, which was filling in for Celia, Color Purple, has now become like one of her, I would say like biggest movie to date so far.
Yeah.
Now, RJ, as our American Idol historian, how many Black women have won American Idol?
There have been 2. There have been Fantasia Barrino and Candace Glover.
Candace Glover, that's the other one.
That's it.
Jennifer Hudson didn't win American Idol?
Jennifer Hudson was that year of Fantasia season, but she got 6th place.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Because the electricity went out in Chicago.
The electricity
very
went out
famous
in Chicago that night. And that was like I don't think they've come close to that season of like, they had like 3 very powerful like Black women in the show, as like, it was clear from the very beginning they were going to be the top 3.
Yeah. And
Fantasia was the last one standing. That was the Diana DeGarmo came from that season, who became another Broadway favorite.
It was between her and Taylor.
It was her and
too, right? Yeah.
So and Fantasia was 19 during that season. And if you watch clips of her that season, she doesn't feel like she feels like her voice, like her presence.
Her sound is incredibly unique.
Yes.
I was surprised when you said that she's 19 when she was on American Idol from my recollection. Although I looked up her age before this and she's 39 now. So I guess she has to have been 19 when she was on American Idol just by logic. But
yeah. And Diana DeGarmo, her runner-up, was 16.
Wow.
And the third place, Jasmine Trias, was 17.
What have you removed? Like, what important things have you removed from your brain to make way for that information to have retained? Like
MLA,
family names?
MLA, APA, probably.
Yeah.
Certain historical facts.
Great.
You know, the Middle Ages, they're all kind of just one thing.
So I truly know literally nothing about the book, the movie, the original movie, the musical. The only thing I've ever seen is I'm Here at the Tonys. That's the only context I have. I think it's an incredible song. I've listened to that song a bunch because I think it's like one of the best pieces of, like, it is firmly within the like musical theater greatest works canon for sure.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I knew it was like really dark, or not dark per se, but like
heavy.
That's a great word. Bleak. And so I don't.
Did you have any background on the original movie, the Steven Spielberg movie, or not?
No, I knew who was in it. Like I knew like
Whoopi and
Oprah and Danny Glover and other people were in it. But I knew it was about abuse. I actually didn't even know it was about sexual abuse. I just thought it was like domestic abuse. And and I didn't know there was that's my whole history. But then this year on Pop Culture Happy Hour, which is a great podcast that NPR puts out, I highly recommend it.
Molly, no, she's got the totes.
Molly loves NPR.
Yeah.
So Aisha Harris, who's their newest co-host of the Four Chairs on the pod, she did a retrospective series, a 3-part series of films that represented minority groups that the minority groups themselves took issue with at the time, even though they were lauded as being like part of whatever. Yeah. So she talked about Italians with The Godfather and how it's actually like a lot of Italian Americans were like really offended by it and felt like it stereotyped them. For Black Americans, it was The Color Purple. And then for the LGBTQ community, it was what's the one where Sharon Stone uncrosses her legs?
Basic Instinct.
Thank you.
Basic Instinct is an LGBTQ movie.
She's like bisexual or whatever. She like has sexual. Okay. A lot of people just mostly for like power, it seems, but that was like part of the controversy was like, well, this isn't really anyway. So in the Color Purple episode, which I will put in the show notes because I highly recommend listening to it, she talks about how there was obviously some criticism of like Steven Spielberg's film because he is a white filmmaker and it is a Black story, and there was some like, I don't know if he understood all the nuances of Alice Walker's original novel, so there was some criticism of that, but there was a massive pushback from like even the NAACP against the film for like the depiction of Black men in the film, and to a lesser extent the homosexuality, not necessarily in the film because it's not really drawn out in the film, but like the book, Shug and Celie are bumping coochies, let's say that. So
let's not.
The reverence that you exhibit.
So I thought that was very interesting because I feel like in my understanding of the film, or this piece, I should say, is that like it's always been like really respected in the Black community, blah, blah, blah. So to hear like that the NAACP was like, it's a no from us, I was like, oh, that's very interesting. I
always knew that like The Color Purple was like one of the classic books to always be banned. I even while I was watching this movie, I told Adam, I was like, isn't it crazy that this book, like this story, is banned because of that and not like all the violence that
it's both. It is like the extreme violence is often cited as one of the reasons.
I would think that would be the NAACP's primary concern. Yeah. But I think it's interesting. So I did, before recording, I read the Wikipedia pages for the book, the 1985 film, and I mean, I didn't read it for the one we watched. I watched the movie, but I think I'm remembering this right. I'm reviewing the page for the the film. So in the book, Squeak is biracial and is the daughter of a white man and a black woman, and her uncle is the warden of the prison where Sophia is kept after the altercation with the mayor. And then Squeak convinces the warden to let Sophia go, but then the warden rapes her, apparently.
Rapes who? Squeak?
Squeak.
Jesus.
So I only point that out because, as you were saying about the violent depictions of black men, I think maybe the book, if it looks like both film versions omitted that storyline, which I understand that it's like heavy enough and we don't necessarily need to get into it.
Yeah.
But the book might do more to like portray men in a more general way as violent, because it also includes a white character who is sexually abusing a member of his own family,
right?
Rather than just because, I mean, I very much take it as like this is a story about like violence that men enact on women, and women forming community to get away from that violence, and like not necessarily connected to race. But I can understand when you have a film where all the significant male characters are black, that and then they're being violent, and specifically like the threat of like black men raping women is like kind of a thing in terms of history of racial fears that people have. I could understand having concerns about that.
Right. And I think you're right, and I'm really excited to talk about this movie because first of all, I thought it was great, but I think it's more important. Like, it is a story about black women, but it does not feel like it is a story. It's like generalized men, because like the mayor's a piece of shit. Like almost all even except Harpo, I think might be and then the guy that Shug marries. The guy in the band. I don't know his name. John Batiste. Slay. They're like the only two like normal men in this whole movie. But even like Harpo has like the part where he like tries to like hit Sophia. Just
Harpo gets convinced to be violent. So
work out for him in that way. But yeah, okay. So you talked about it a little bit. The Color Purple, 1982. The book written by Alice Walker. It won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. And she is the first black woman to win the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. And as RJ said, this is American Library Association's 100 most frequently challenged books from 1990 until 2019. It has been on that list.
Jeez.
In the 90s, it was number 17. In the 2000s, it was 17, and then I think it dropped in the 2010s to number 50. I think is what it was. But it is a strong stalwart on that list. So in case you're curious, I looked up what the 2022 top 10 most challenged books from the American Library Association are. So,
oh God, this is so sad.
There's 13 technically in total because there's a couple ties. So in 10, we have Crank by Ellen Hopkins, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jesse Andrews, and This Book is Gay by Juno Dawson. That's number 10. Oh, and I'm sorry. And A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas, which is
very interesting. Yes, that's like fairy smut.
Yeah. Okay, number 9 is Out of Darkness by Ashley Hope Perez. 8 is The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. 7 is Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evison. Number 5 is another tie between The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. Our own Stephen Chbosky from Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah.
And Looking for Alaska by John Green. Number 4,
John Green.
For John Green. Number 4 is
TikTok's favorite author,
Flamer by Mike Curato. Number 3 is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson is number 2, and number 1 is Genderqueer, a Memoir by Maya Kobabe. So if you need a list of recommended books, I stand firm in saying probably those 13 are great.
Yeah, we fully endorse. Just read all of these.
I've never read any of them, but I'm sure you've read Perks.
I have read Perks. I knew a little bit of Crank. I know a little bit of Bluest Eye.
Yeah.
I've read Perks and Looking for Alaska. Yeah.
Yeah. And Ari loves Court of Mist and Fury. So great. Go to your local library and find some challenged books.
Yeah. Challenge yourself.
Challenge yourself, girls. Okay, so then The Color Purple, 1985, directed by Steven Spielberg. It's produced by Kathleen Kennedy, Star Wars' own CEO, and Frank Marshall, Steven Spielberg, and Quincy Jones. It stars Danny Glover, as Mr. Adolf Caesar as, I think, Mr.'s dad. I didn't look up who plays what. But Whoopi plays Celie in an Academy Award winning or nominated performance for Best Actress. And Oprah played Sophia.
Also nominated.
This I did with like cultural osmosis. I did know Color Purple was about sisters, so I just assumed for a very long time that Oprah and Whoopi were the sisters because it just seemed like these are the two people who are in it, and it's a movie about sisters. So I assumed that they're the sisters, but in fact, they're not.
Yeah.
Yes,
they are not. It's true.
And I would say like the very quotable, like the iconic lines from that movie, the "You told Harpo to beat me." That's like that clip goes around.
Oh yeah.
And when she raises her fingers to Mr. and says, "Everything you've done to
when
me,
she curses him,
already been done to you."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that movie was just for fun facts about that movie, 15 million was the budget and its box office is 98.4 million. So a hit for
it was Best Picture nominated too, wasn't it?
It was Best Picture nominated. It basically was nominated for nominated for like 9 Academy Awards. I don't think it won any of them though.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it helped that the NAACP was like, don't award this picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if now looking back, if they would have done things differently, but I think it was also the books itself was also so fresh too. Like the book comes out 1982. This is 1985. I mean, this is like a quick turnaround. My mom said that when she was in college, she was assigned, they were assigned The Color Purple.
Wow.
So she did read the book and she was like, it's bleak.
I think this was because the story takes place so long ago. I think I thought that it was like almost like a contemporary, that it was written like in the 50s or 60s.
Yeah, I think I maybe thought, or even like the 1900s or so. Like I don't think I had a really good sense of when the novel was, right, because it would have had to be post 40s based on how long it goes for. But did your mom go to college later in life, or is she just that much younger than my parents?
I think she went a few years after. I don't remember what years she went.
She had a little bit of a break. Interesting.
I think so. Yeah. But I think she only did a year. I don't remember her whole college story.
Okay.
But I don't usually bring up the movie if there's like a movie, but then like they end up making a musical and then it's real. But I feel like this piece,
the movie, I would say, really catapulted.
The movie catapulted, and I think this musical is in conversation with both the musical and the film and the book, obviously. But
definitely this movie that we just watched feels like it is trying to keep both what the original 80s movie did and also the musical.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think just even by very pointedly choosing a Black director, I think they're trying to correct some of, in like almost like West Side Story, in like how do we correct some of the mistakes that we had made, mistakes in quotes, obviously, that we had made with an original iteration.
Although that was then directed by Steven Spielberg. In terms of correcting mistakes, I guess we're continuing having Steven Spielberg.
So Steven Spielberg is the
I think
mistake.
it's the big
He's
problem.
the problem. He's the problem. Is what I'm
That's
saying.
What we're saying.
Because what's he really done? Really? You know?
I mean, what's he done for the film industry?
Color Purple, I think, is his first like non
young
commercial like it's a commercial film, but it's like an more artistic film.
Yeah.
And so I think because I was trying to read some of the like on that Wikipedia page, they have the criticism section of the movie, and I think one of them was like, this is his first time at heavier fare, and it doesn't seem to be working for Mr. Spielberg. And I was like, oh, that's so crazy that this man made Schindler's List like 2 years later. Anyway, so The Color Purple, then the musical, debuts in 2005. 2005.
Yeah.
Music and lyrics are by Brenda Russell, Allie Willis, and Stephen Bray. It
was an Oprah Winfrey.
It was Oprah Winfrey produced. So is this film that we're talking about today. The 2005 production was criticized for the lack of homosexuality. It basically boils Shug and Celie down to, just like in the movie, in the Spielberg movie, and he is actually copped to this, where he said, I softened that storyline because I wanted to make sure we could get a PG-13 rating. That was part of it. And also like, he said like, I don't know if I felt comfortable at the time, and I probably wasn't the right person for that particular storyline. But they do the same thing, I think, in the musical. I don't think it's as explicit. I think the 2023 version is the most explicit Shug, Celie, we get. And we'll talk about that
other
later,
than the novel, obviously. Yeah.
Other than the novel, yes, in all the adaptations. Yeah. And one of the critics at the time lambasted the musical because that 2005 is also when Brokeback Mountain came out. So they were like, Hollywood has a movie right now about gay cowboys, like raw dogging, but we can't even have like two women
in love
more than like a kiss on stage.
Yeah.
And I think they were saying because the musical, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot of, it seems like they pulled a lot of dramaturgical elements from the church. I was asking RJ, the original musical, how do they do time transitions? Because the time jumps are crazy. And I was like trying to figure out how on stage you would like know where we were at, especially like you can do it easily in like, I think the latter half of the 20th century, just with like design, like costume changes. But that first half of the 20th century, girl, I would be like, I don't know. It could be 1904. It
Headlines can be changing and I'm not going to know it.
We're in rural Georgia. Like, girl, I don't know. Yeah. So
the musical employs a little bit more of the ensemble as kind of like a Greek chorus, like the pastor and like the churchgoers are kind of singing like what's happening in the town. So there's a little bit more like interstitial ensemble numbers that kind of talk about what's happening now, like who's the man that just rolled in with Shug years after she was here, or stuff like that. So and I think they did a little bit of it, I think, in the beginning of the movie. Yeah,
of this movie, yeah. So they were saying
that's very interesting to call it out, that like the focus on the faith.
Well, because they were saying they wondered if it's because they've decided to focus on faith that's why they pulled away from the homosexual element.
Yeah.
As if those two things have to be diametrically opposed.
Right, but in 2005,
the implication is like we're trying to get a more religious audience in to come see this, basically.
Well, it's the thing. It's like, who are you? It's like, are you getting like black churchgoers to come out and see Broadway? You know,
maybe that was their tactic.
That's the ideal.
It's the tactic because it feels that way. Like the spirit of the show definitely feels that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the original criticism was that the songs felt unfinished, which I thought was interesting. But I also read that for this movie, they cut 13 songs. And I was like,
wow,
how many songs? So how many songs are the original musical?
Yeah.
Like that's so many songs. Yeah. So for the original, I have here the Tony nominations. It was basically nominated for everything. Best musical, best book of a musical, best original score, best featured actor in a musical for Braden Victor Dixon. Best featured actress got 2 nominations. Best choreography, best scenic design, best costume design, best lighting design. Those are all nominees. And then LaShawne's won for Celie in 2005.
Broadway's favorite LaShawne's. I mean, another Broadway icon.
Yeah. And then 2015 was the revival with Cynthia Erivo that we were talking about earlier. And then a lot more people win in that revival. It's a stripped down aesthetic. It's It's
basically like the set is just like planks of wood and then like chairs on a like vertical height that are just like hung, and they take them down to turn them into like the different settings and stuff. Yeah. And it is very much Greek chorus ensemble kind of builds the story in the world.
Yeah. And Cynthia, I think, won. Yeah, she did win the Tony that year.
She won. That was, I believe, that was Hamilton. She was the only one that won.
She was the only one that wasn't.
The only non-Hamilton,
Hamilton performer that won.
But I think everyone who won was
black.
All the main 4 were black winners that year.
Yeah, I think they were. Yeah.
Okay. The Color Purple, 2023. It is directed by Blitz Bazawule. Blitz Bazawule directed Black is King, the Beyonce visual album from 2019. So I thought that was a very interesting choice. Because if you're directing a visual, it's basically you're directing a musical, a bunch of music videos.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's smart. They clearly know what they're doing.
They connected those dots.
Screenplay is by Marcus Gardley. It's based on The Color Purple. It's produced by Oprah Winfrey, Steven Spielberg, Scott Sanders, and Quincy Jones. It stars Fantasia Barrino as Celie, Taraji P. Henson as Shug, Avery, Danielle Brooks as Sophia, Coleman Domingo as Mr., Corey Hawkins as Harpo, her as Squeak, Halle Bailey, which I feel bad saying Squeak because her name's not Squeak, but I can't remember what her name is.
Mary Agnes.
I think it's Mary Agnes.
Oh, Mary Agnes. Perfect.
Only RJ and I were paying attention, apparently.
I saw it days ago, Molly. Days. I'm sorry, Halle Bailey as young Betty, Louis Gossett Jr. as old Mr., like Mr's dad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sierra as Nettie.
Yes.
Current
Nettie.
Present Nettie. John Batiste as the guy that Shug marries.
Yeah.
Like Jermaine or something, right? Something like that.
I think that's right, Jermaine.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. So that must be the.
Aunjanue Ellis Taylor was the mom in the flashbacks. Ma.
Oh, okay.
And then Felicia Pearl
was young Celie.
Yes, Felicia Pearl Mbasi was young Celie.
Okay, great. She was great. Cinematography is by Don Lawston. It is edited by John Pohl. The score is by Chris Bowers. Production companies is OW Films, Amblin Entertainment, SGS Pictures, Quincy Jones Productions, and Domain Entertainment. It is distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures. It was released on December 25th, Christmas Day, 2023, just a mere 4 days ago. And the running time is 140 minutes. The budget was 90 to 100 million, depending on reports. And so far it has made 32.3 million. However, let me tell you, Christmas Day, here are the stats.
Yes.
The Color Purple was number 1 in the box office for Christmas Day at 18.15 million.
Great.
Number 2 was Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. 3 was Wonka. Huge. Again, 'tis the season for musicals. The Boys in the Boat was number 4 and Migration was number 5. I've never heard of The Boys in the Boat.
Boys in the Boat is like historical fiction about a crew team in like the 40s.
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe not fiction. I think it's based on a real story. I don't know. Everyone was reading that book in like 2012. Yeah. It's a sports movie.
Yeah.
So the only other interesting facts I have about this movie, because apparently, as we know, it's December 29th. The Academy Award nominations haven't even come out yet. They won't for a couple months. So here's the Critics' Choice Award nominations. Best Picture, Best Supporting Actress for Danielle Brooks, Best Acting Ensemble, Best Hair and Makeup, and Best Costume Design. Those are the Critics' Choice nominations. I think those awards happen mid-January, so it'll be a couple weeks.
No Golden Globes because...
They do have Golden Globes. 2 nominations, Best Movie, Musical or Comedy, and Best Actress, Fantasia.
Great.
Okay.
And those are January 7th.
Yeah, those are
when
coming
the
up.
Globes are.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I have no information. There's no trivia. There was no production notes. There was nothing.
I know from TikTok clips, because they're doing a lot of press right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the random facts, Fantasia, the only thing she took from set were her slips to the cast's delight, because they were like the slips, and she was like, yeah, some of them were cute, and they were all like, girl. No, they weren't, but go ahead. And that can you go back to the names? Felicia, I think. Felicia Pearl. She originally went for Celie and was actually rejected, and was called back again later because they were like, you actually read very young. Would you be interested in reading for young Celie? And at the time, she's currently working at a writer's room for a show. And it was during that she told the story of like, they were in the middle of writing and she was like, can I go to the bathroom real quick to answer a phone call from like Oprah basically and the team to say that she was cast.
Wow.
I also believe there's a clip of Fantasia and Danielle getting the call from Oprah.
I know there's the clip of Danielle Brooks getting the call from Oprah that she had gotten Sophia for the movie because she was in the revival. She was a replacement of Sophia in the revival on Broadway.
How old is Felicia Pearl Mbasi?
Let's do a quick Google.
I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to do a Google.
Well, and I remember when I heard that story, I was like, I mean, if you're an actor, like you really don't, sometimes you truly don't know, like until you're put in.
She's 30.
Yeah.
She's 30. Wow. She does read so young.
She reads so young.
She reads so young. Because I was like, where did they find this young Fantasia? She looks like her.
And oh my God, the like connection between them, it's like seamless when they transition.
Yeah.
Visual similarity. Oh my God.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. Okay, wait. While we're talking about similarities between the actresses, I want to talk about casting Halle Bailey and then I guess Sierra then as well. But I don't know. Do you want me to talk about that when we get to Nettie, or should we talk about it now?
Let's do it now. Let's jump in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's jump in.
Let's jump in. Okay, so we're in. Do you want to talk about Nettie first?
Should we start with Nettie?
She has the least amount of screen time.
Yeah, so we can start with Nettie.
Yes, she is a very important character to Celie, but she doesn't actually spend that much time in the movie. She has just like a significant chunk at the beginning, and then she comes back at the very end. She's mostly an off-screen character. Okay, so I, not knowing the book or the movie really that well, was pretty distracted by how different Halle Bailey and Felicia Pearl and Bassi look. And to the extent that in the scene where she inherits the store and then the like widow of her father says like, oh, you weren't actually his biological daughter. I thought that maybe then she was going to find out that Nettie was her half sister because like Halle Bailey is like significantly lighter skin tones than Felicia. Yeah. And their facial features are just like completely different. And I understand like you're still casting people who are not actually related. Like they're not going to necessarily look like siblings, but like you could try a little bit harder to make people look like each other. And I was thrown by it. And I tried to find information about like, is there something, it made me think like, oh, is it in the novel that like Nettie just happens to have a lighter skin tone and that's part of like the plot and like what the novel is telling you about? Because Nettie kind of like gets protected, it feels like, in a way that Celie doesn't. And I was like, oh, is that part of the story? Is that like Nettie, the lighter skinned daughter, is like treated better, is like thought of as having more of a future, like is the pretty one, basically. Apparently that's not part of it. I looked up the actresses that played obviously I know Whoopi Goldberg, but like I looked at the actress who played Nettie in the 1985 film, like both pretty similar skin tone. And apparently Alice Walker coined the term colorism. Like she is the person who like, I don't think in the novel, I think probably in like, you know, like an essay dialogue, or something like that. So I was surprised that it didn't come up more. I found like one forum with like random people talking about how they thought it was a problem that Halle Bailey got cast and taking away the role from a dark-skinned actress. Whoa. But I'm surprised I haven't seen like any discourse about it because it's such an odd choice to, I get it. Like Halle Bailey is obviously a star and you want to put people in your movie that people are going to want to come see whatever. But like, it seems like a really odd choice and really weird that it's not been coming up at all in any of the press coverage. Yeah. I wonder if because of the casting, it would just almost became like an inherent, like, I don't know if it was a clear decision, but it does. I mean, that's definitely what you get, right? Like that because she's light skinned, you're connecting that immediately, like visually, I feel like, as an audience member. But it's very interesting that it was like not at least intentional.
I think it seems intentional for the purpose that we were just talking about of the like colorism aspect of it. Cause I immediately read, like, I was like, oh, that's why, not the only reason why, but it's definitely baked into like, that's why they are seen as two different. Yeah. It seems like from what I read, again, I didn't read the novel, but it seems like I said, Squeak is biracial. And it seems like that is something that's like explored more explicitly in the novel. And so like colorism comes up, but in terms of how Squeak is treated differently, like especially than Sophia, but not between the two sisters necessarily. So I thought that was interesting because Squeak is in this, but like almost to a point where I was like, I don't know why they included this character other than people are expecting her to be here. Like she's not contributing much to the plot of the 2023 film, I feel. I thought I was like coming up with a storyline in my head that like her and Halle Bailey tried out for Nettie. The singer. Yeah. They both tried out for Nettie, and her was probably just so good that they were like, well, I want to put you in this movie in some way. This is just your headcanon that you created. Let's bring up this character, Squeak, because she doesn't really do much in the movie. She provides like a point of conflict for Sophia, obviously, because she's Harpo's like new girl. But then she just kind of joins the group. So it just kind of like adds another person to add into like this female group at the end, right? Yeah. I mean, I think she's in the stage show because then when I was looking up stuff about Squeak, I saw like an article that had pictures of depictions of Squeak and it included somebody that was like very clearly in stage makeup. So I think she's in the stage show. But I don't know if she has a bigger role in the stage show or if again, it's just like this is a character everybody knows is in this story. So we like have to have her in here somewhere. I just don't know. Yeah. It is interesting that you bring, because I didn't know the Squeak character. I thought it was going to be like, they created a character for her. So very interesting that she's actually a real character and that it's biracial because her is biracial. She's Black and Filipino. So it's very interesting. Like I thought that was nice casting of like also including like biracial actors, you know? Yeah. I don't think she's in the 1985 film. Okay. From what I can tell from this quick. Oh no, she is. I'm sorry. Radon Chong as Mary Agnes. Yeah. Also biracial. This actress. Okay. interesting about Squeak. I don't know in terms of, yes, I don't know if she is like, what I hate being like, is she worthwhile? But like, is she like, she doesn't really contribute to the plot per se, but I felt like it was like another, we don't have to dwell on her, but the fact that she is so frustrated with her life that she also leaves with them to go to Memphis. I was like, it's just another, it's just showing that like almost every Black woman in this story is like subjugated to some degree. Whether or not it's all the same, obviously, is not necessarily the case, but everybody that this is in this story is like put upon by the men in their lives, and it's horrible.
I know we're gonna dive character by character, but do we want to do just quick general? What is everyone's general take first before we dive in?
Sure, go ahead.
I loved it. No, I really liked it because I knew that the music was good from what I've listened to from both soundtracks of the both Broadway versions. So I came in with high expectations, and I also came in knowing that like it feels like it's going to be an epic, and so I was kind of prepared for that. And I thought they did a very good job. I think it has the challenges like in any other epic film to try and cover as much ground to try and cover an entire story. But I felt that they were very focused on Celie's like perspective. Obviously, I think everything that they kept in the stories around her to kind of ultimately kind of boost her own path. They all felt very complimentary to give Celie kind of like the best shot, which I'm sure is there in the book, but the movie felt very much like you were supposed to stay tuned to like this one character, and she definitely like was the glue. I felt like I thought my biggest takeaways were absolutely Fantasia, Danielle Brooks, and Taraji P. Henson. They were like insane, and I could like truly like they were so lived in these characters that I it didn't even feel like I was watching acting sometimes. Like watching Fantasia was like I am just watching a person live their life. Like I feel like I'm watching a documentary.
Yeah, I said to RJ that this movie, now that I know what it's fully about, it reminded me, it felt like it was in conversation with the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, which is like the really famous book and movie that's like about she like starts during slavery, and then like it goes through her entire life out of slavery into was that period of time after Reconstruction. Thank you. I was gonna say restoration, but that is a different time period. Reconstruction, and I know we watched it in like world history when I was, first of all, why was I? No, maybe I watched in U.S. history in like junior year of high school. But in the way that this movie starts from a very young Celie in the turn of the century all the way through like the 40s, like it's a quite a span of years. And sometimes I think, especially in like biopics, I think it can be a detriment because you're trying to encompass so much of a person's life, and it's so hard without just feeling very rote. But this is such a specific story, and obviously not. It's fiction. So there's episodes that feel like the super high drama.
Yeah.
But I thought the movie itself as a whole was really good. I think it's a good movie musical. I think it's a really good movie musical, actually. I think the musical elements of this movie I think are very strong. I think I got 3 dream sequences in this. So like, Mama, I was living. The third one I fully was like, I can't believe we're getting
I want to say the original, maybe not both, but I think the original Broadway production has a makeup tutorial on YouTube. I would like, this is definitely one that I would love to watch and see, does it actually translate to the movie?
Sure.
I want to compare it.
Yeah. Because it's so big. It's so massive in scope. I mean, it's such a small interior story. It's the story of this like rural community, and like some of the poorest citizens in this rural community. But it feels like so massive in what it's trying to say and the themes it's dwelling on. And I said to RJ when the movie was over that I was like, I know we have said previously on this podcast before that Les Mis is like the most Christian movie we've ever seen, but I feel like this usurps it in the way that there is like true forgiveness and like gratitude at the end of this movie that I was not expecting this movie to end on. I did not expect this movie to have a bad ending, a sorrowful ending, but to have it be, I think it's Easter, isn't it Easter Sunday?
Yeah, it's Easter.
Yeah. And I just was like, there's a lot baked in here, and God, we love to talk about Christ. So can't wait to get into that conversation. But those are, I think, my general takes. I think it's very good. Molly?
Yeah. I also loved it. I also loved the West Side Story remake, and I'm trying to be cautious of like, maybe I just love it when I actually see musicals on the big screen. That could have been part of it. I cried twice. I cried during I'm Here, and I cried when Nettie came back. Yes. So it really, really got me. I went in with some hesitation, knowing like it is a heavy story. And I was like, I think I'm going to like it, but I might be kind of depressed watching it, was kind of my mindset. And I did feel like a little bit of a dip of like, this is a tough watch. And like just before Shug came, I was like getting a little like, I'm not sure if I can handle 2.5 hours of this. Yeah. And then Shug came and lit up my entire life. And all I want to be in this life is Shug Avery. And I am so excited to talk about it. So I think that it was like well paced. I think the music was really good. I'm surprised they cut 13 songs. I'm curious how many of those like had a scene to replace it versus just like cutting out parts of the plot. I
don't know if some of those may have been like transitional songs too. So,
for sure. Oh, for sure. Or like chorus songs or the colors were like amazing. Like in a very different than Umbrellas of Cherbourg kind of way. Yes. Like not the out of this world bright colors, but like, it had a little bit sepia tone of historical, but still such richness in just like the landscapes and the costumes and so it was a beautiful film. I agree. The performances were amazing. The only other funny thing I want to say in terms of overall experience is that when I arrived at the theater, I noticed that a lot of the people in the theater, like in the lobby area of the theater, were Black. And I'm here in Minnesota. We have obviously Black people live here, but not tons of Black people. So it's unusual to go into a random movie theater in the suburbs and see mostly Black folks who are there to be patrons. So I had a moment of being like, is it like weird that I'm seeing this? Like, I think of The Color Purple as a movie that is definitely like a Black film and well regarded, other than, as we talked about before, in the Black community, but like very much a crossover hit, like not a thing that seems like I would expect only a Black audience to be going to see. So I was happy that then in the actual movie theater, it was a pretty mixed audience. It just like happened to be that the time that I arrived in the lobby, but I did have like just a half a second of being like, am I not supposed to go see this matinee of The Color Purple? I think this is fine, but like maybe this is not a space that I'm supposed to be welcoming myself into.
We had the same demographics watching this at Adam's South Bend, Indiana movie theater. We saw it with his mom. We saw a matinee.
I think RJ and I were the only two men in this theater.
Oh, like interesting.
Did not,
because I looked around because I was curious, like. There were a bunch of like Black women in our row. So I was looking around at the other rows to see kind of like how it was shaking out. And I would say it was predominantly Black in the theater. But South Bend I think it has a larger Black population, but
definitely almost all women.
I am going to come out and say that we were the only two men in that movie theater. I'm gonna.
That's really interesting.
Showing, yeah.
I
think we were.
I also went to a 220 showing. I wasn't paying as close attention to men, but I feel like there were like couples and groups there that had men in it. I didn't notice looking around the theater that it seemed like more women than I would expect. Yeah,
it felt. Well, we saw it the day after Christmas too. So I felt like it was a lot of like sisters, a lot of like cousins, like families, like women in the family all came together.
Yes.
That was the vibe it was giving.
It's definitely the vibe when we were leaving, because there were like huge families just like talking like,
and then, fully filled theater, like not a seat available in this movie theater, fully at capacity, and like giving every reaction that you want. Absolutely. When you're watching a movie.
Wow.
And like, it was like the gasps and the cheers.
My theater was maybe 10% full, if I'm being generous. It was like a very, but I'm seeing it on a Friday, right? So like, that's when maybe people were seeing it with their family, and some people might be back at work and blah, 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 matinee. And so I actually sat like, there's kind of an aisle between like the first few rows and then the back rows. And I had reserved a seat at like the back of the front part, so I couldn't see anybody else around me while I was actually watching the movie. So I had like a very different, like not at all communal feeling kind of movie experience. Yeah.
I think this was our third movie that we saw for Showgays in theaters. The first one was In the Heights. And
yes.
And
In the Heights, we ended up rewatching again later. We did not see it for.
Yes. I didn't see it in the theater for it. Yeah. Okay.
But I remember being in the Heights conversation, like in the theater, we felt obviously like we were crying, we were overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's so silly to say, but there is something about watching a movie that's like 20 feet and it's very powerful when it's appropriately powerful. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Who do we want to start with? I don't think we should start right with Celie. That probably seems crazy. Do we want to do Sophia? Last.
I almost think we should do. Is there anything more about Nettie?
Nope.
Okay. I will say the thing that I really liked about Nettie was her letters, the sequences where they shot the letters, where Celie finally discovers the letters. She reads them one by one, and she is like walking through how Celie's describing them. That first scene where she's sitting on the branches of this tree at the beach, and you realize that it's because she's reading a letter about how Nettie landed in Africa. I was like, oh, I love going back to this dream sequence, like very dream sequence heavy movie. I really liked that. And this idea of like, this is almost like Celie's way out for a lot of the first, like 2/3 of the movie is these letters and these dream sequences. And
okay, let's talk about that dream sequence because she gets this letter and she envisions the letter as she's reading it.
Yes.
And the brilliant choice that they made is using the same places that we've already been, because that is the only thing Celie knows. Yeah. And so it comes back up again later where Shug is like, she has to see more of the world. Yeah. And that's why she takes her to Memphis. And I was like, oh, it's so smart to use the same beach from the earlier in this film as the beach in Africa, because that's just what you're going to envision. And then like, everything about the African part felt really stereotypical, but I was like, but I think that's because she has no context for what Africa would look like. It
like looks like it's happening in like Mister's lie.
Yes. And the fact that like she only remembers Nettie with that hat. So she is envisioning her wearing the same hat. And I was like, oh my, I that was like a brilliant choice that I was like, I don't know if everyone would catch this, like, or subconsciously they might understand it. But I was like, that is such a smart creative decision instead of just like actually trying to find a place that like, it looks like Africa. You know what I mean?
I didn't think about it consciously, but yeah, that's very true. And it's adding so much texture for us too of the locations that the movie takes place in. I mean, again, just the landscape and the way that they capture it, like I don't think everyone wanted to go to rural Georgia so bad.
Yeah. And they're like,
and it feels like the land that she's in feels like it goes for miles and miles. Like it feels so large. I don't actually know how large his land is, but it feels like she can get lost. Like the swamp the
swamp is shot so beautifully. I mean, like there is such a beautiful way that this movie, I think, depicts the rural Southern American landscape that I think is so often mired in this like
human
view, just like this view especially, I mean, I'll say like Americans from the North have of like the South as being this like horrible, like it's so racist and everybody like there's all these plantations and blah, blah, blah. But like there is so much beauty. And I thought this movie did such a good job at like really showcasing the natural beauty of the South. Like that ending scene under the tree with like everyone around the table. And the light was coming. I was like, if there is like a depiction of what heaven should look like, it is that is what it is. It was so incredibly stunning. Yeah. The field of the flowers as they were walking through it. It's just so simple and so like down home feels so like stupid to say, but it's not like ostentatious in any way, but there's such a beauty in it that I was like, I thought this movie captured so well. I was so excited anytime we were like outside because I thought they did such a good job with that. And also that house in Memphis was gorgeous.
Oh my God.
Gorgeous. Oh my God. I have to quickly say though, the Easter scene, I mean, I like gasped. It was so beautiful, but I couldn't help but think about 8.5 at the end where they're all holding hands and they're wearing white. I don't think that they were referencing that at all. I don't think that was an intentional homage because it does not fit the tone of that scene at all. Yeah. But it was funny that I couldn't stop remembering that.
Yeah. That's what brain rot was.
I truly thought Molly. I was thinking about like, I wonder if Molly's gonna like this ending because it's not, they're not doing toe tapping big finale. But
it's not a full
it feels
finale,
grand, right?
I was hoping I was hoping that maybe the credit sequence would have like a really upbeat song over like there would be one more ensemble number that's just kind of playing underneath the credits, and I didn't really get that. So I would have liked it more if there had been a little more something in the credits maybe. But yes, in terms of like finishing the story, and like it's just beautiful, and it was a good ending.
And the gag of Sierra and Nettie grew up
the gag of Sierra getting out of that car.
I mean that whole. I mean their entire.
And the white and then like the African garments being like black and white. Oh my god! I was like, the costume in this movie goes off so hard.
Yeah.
The way that like Celie is wearing like this white gown with like lace, and then Nettie has like eyelets in her. Like they make the costumes different because one of them is from Georgia and one of them is from somewhere in Africa. I don't know who ever learned specifically where Nettie was spending time, but like showing this, like they've had parallel lives and things have been different, but there's still these things and similarities that connect them. It was like gorgeous storytelling through costume.
Can I also say something about, because I don't think we're going to come back to her children in a real way. That
sure.
What I was reading, I'm assuming you read this too, that in the book that Adam, her son who marries, he comes back with that wife.
With the wife and kids.
She has, in the book, it details that she goes through female circumcision. Wow. And so I thought that was
scarring.
And facial scarring. And he chooses to get the facial scarring as well.
Yeah.
And I thought it's another way that Alice I have to read I was like, I have to read this book.
You have to read the book, yeah.
But I thought it's not just women in the American South are put upon. It's that these institutions are keeping women in this place all over the world. I mean, it's such a smart way to be like, it's not just a you problem. It's an everywhere problem. Yeah. It's a problem globally.
Yeah.
Are we good on Nettie?
I think we're good on that.
Who do we want to go to? Do we want to go to Sophia or do we want to go to Shug?
I think we should do Sophia first. Because she's also kind of first in terms of the plot. Yeah.
So Sophia is the new wife. Do they get married? They get married, right?
They do get married during
that's right. She is the new wife of Harpo, who is Mr.'s son from a previous relationship. She is a full-figured woman, and she is very headstrong.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's a great foil to Celie.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I want to start by saying I think Danielle Brooks was put on this earth to play this role.
Absolutely.
She steals every scene that she's in. If she doesn't get an Academy Award nomination for this film, that it's rigged.
Yeah.
It's rigged, and we need to either stop the count or keep counting the votes. Whichever way it needs to go.
Yeah.
She's so she's so perfect in it. Mm-hmm. And the way, I don't know how to say this, like the character I think could become a caricature. It could feel like the character was written just to be so like ridiculously headstrong that she's such a foil to Celie, where like almost what was the thing that people criticized like when we were in college about like female action heroes who were just like men but that had boobs or whatever, of like
Mary
do you know
Sue.
Or like this, it was like strong female character or something, but it's all capitalized or something. There was a period where people were really obsessed with criticizing these characters who were like, they have no flaws. And it wasn't quite a Mary Sue, because Mary Sue is like self-insert, but maybe it's related to that. Mm-hmm. Where like, I will get annoyed sometimes with things that are like trying to be feminist. And so then they have these women that like their whole personality is just like, they're going to say whatever they want and blah, blah, blah. Like, Cinderella. But it never feels like that. It never feels like this is not a real person that could exist and would actually react this way. And I mean, maybe it's partially the fact that she has this whole arc where her spirit does get broken in jail and then she kind of comes back to it, which is devastating. But oh my God, the line, okay. Am I skipping? Because I'm skipping at like the end of the character arc. But like so
at the dinner table.
Yeah. So Sophia has been this headstrong woman. She ends up leaving Harpo when he beats her. She goes and finds a new man. She is in town at one point with her new family, and the wife of the mayor tries to get her to work for her, just like is really pushy about it. And then she just is like, hell no, I don't want to be your maid. And then it starts an altercation with the mayor. She ends up in jail. She's in jail for 6 years. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And then forced to go work as the maid when she's out of jail. It's so ridiculous. So Sophia, who's been this very outspoken, headstrong character, her spirit's really broken by this whole jail experience. She's like completely quiet. She's not eating anything. It's this whole thing.
She's catatonic.
And she's absolutely catatonic.
Yeah.
Celie finally stands up to Mr. Says she's leaving her Memphis with Shug. And she's like Celia's like threatening Mr. and getting herself out of there. And then I don't know if it's Sugar Celia that says like, Sophia will take over from here or something like that. Sophia picks up the knife and she says something like, oh, Sophia was born to be here or something like about the fact that like this is exactly the situation that she has been waiting her whole life to like take over the power structure of this family unit is it's everything I ever wanted.
And then she says there's gonna be a few changes around here.
Oh yeah.
It's so good.
Which is like, I think almost exactly the line in August Osage County, isn't it?
This scene is so, I mean, there's so many great American like dinner table scenes. It's such like a staple of American theater.
It's parodied all the time that like, it's such an icon.
But when they're so good, they hit so good. And I think the fact that America keeps doing Thanksgiving every year, I think we're going to get these dinner table scenes for the rest of the time.
It's like a cultural force. Like there is decorum when you are eating together as a family, that it's like a prime meat for
and then
like,
you break it. Good. Yeah. Oh my God. Celie calls him like a sack of manure or something. And that's what starts Sophia laughing. And then she's like, pass me those peas. Oh my God.
Sophia,
she says, Celie says that he is as bad as dead horse shit and should be in the ground where dead horse shit belongs. And that is what makes Sophia like start cackling. It's so good.
Cackles. And she says, I've like, that is like the best thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And then she starts crying, like finally erupting this emotion. And just because she's so broken, but then like amazed at Celie. And it's like, Celie's the only one that visited me every single week during the time that I was in jail. And I owe my life to her. Pass me those damn peas. I'm finally going to eat. That entire time, like we were all laughing with her. And then the hush that the theater had when she changes, it was like, this is brilliant.
It's such good. It's such incredible writing too, of like, it cuts out so much of the tension of that moment because it can't reach its climax just yet. So you have to release a little bit, but then it like it starts building. It's so, I mean, like, I hope screenwriters watch this movie and are like, is this how you do it?
Honestly, that might be one of the best films I've seen. One of the best scenes I've seen in a film.
Yes,
absolutely.
Ever. It's probably the best scene I've seen in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
It's so, and the thing is like, the original movie, this was an iconic scene too. Like obviously this is the one where Celie finally leaves. And so I felt that they really like amped it up and it was just, it was so real from everyone. And I didn't expect this from Sophia's character at all. I only knew her from the clips of leaving Harpo and then this moment. So I didn't know that she was going to get like her spirit broken by like being in jail. And that was probably for me, I felt like it made me feel the sickest. Like it was so,
for me too. Yeah.
It's also interesting because this movie starts, and especially as someone who had never seen, I was again, not familiar with this work at all.
Yeah.
Sophia is like introduced as like a very side character and and you're clearly in the beginning supposed to be like, oh, she's what Celie should like try to aspire to a little bit more of like standing up for herself, blah, blah, blah. And you think, that's it. And the fact that we then divert into a full story arc with her and like what happens with the jail and everything, I was like, oh, she's like a fully rounded character that I was just expecting her to kind of like be the comedic relief. And that was it.
Hell no. After she leaves Harpo, I was like, am I not going to see Sophia anymore?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of hell no, I think we should take a little.
Oh yeah. Musical interlude.
I feel sorry for you, to tell you the truth. You remind me of my mama under your husband's thumb. No, you under your husband's foot. What he say go? Why you so scared? I never know. But if a man raise his hand, hell no.
Wow. Great.
I mean, it's so brilliant that we're so inspired by her in that song. And then it's saying hell no to the mayor's wife that ends up causing her to go to jail. And it's obviously unfair that all of that happens to her, but you also get a little bit frustrated with her watching that scene because you feel the tension of the scene and you know, like, girl, like you have to be more polite in your refusal. Like, it's not going to go well for you if you speak up for yourself this way. And so it's like, maybe that's also why I think it's so brilliant and why she feels like a real character, because we see it as her downfall as well as her strongest character, like her most admirable characteristic, right? Yeah. It's her fatal flaw. So like, I think that is so brilliant. And then it's like, when you re-listen to the song, there's a sense of like dramatic irony foreshadowing too that's in that song.
Yeah. I noticed that as soon as she said "Hell No" to the mayor's wife, I was like, oh no.
And Celie sings the reprise of "Hell No," but after leaving, seeing her.
Yeah.
And it's almost it was really nice because it was a way of kind of telling herself that like she sees the injustice, right?
Yeah.
It's it's real good.
I hate to tell you, girls, she is the front runner of the Showgays. I'm not
right now. Absolutely,
right now, girl.
I also just want to shout out her line.
Danielle Brooks.
Yeah. Her line later to Mr. where she says, "Shouldn't you be hanging out in a place with more folks your age, like a cemetery?"
It's so good. It's so good.
So good.
She has a lot of great one-liners in this film. It's really
the man is also fully like 50 years old is the best part of it. Like, he's not old enough to be in the cemetery, but it's so funny. Oh my God.
So do you want to talk? Should we talk a little bit about Harpo too, or do we care?
We can. That guy was in The Heights. That's cool.
Yes, he was Benny. I did really like his performance here. Again, didn't really know much about the Harpo Sophia story. Mm-hmm. I only knew you told Harpo to beat me. So I was like, how is Harpo connected to the story? Mm-hmm. So it was very refreshing to at least see a man try to at least do good with what he has. And obviously he is swayed by what he's learned.
Okay, wait. I'm going to take issue with the concept that he's doing good. I think that he is
trying to.
I don't think that he is nice to his wife initially because he's trying to be better than his father. He just is naturally less domineering, and so he wants her to just listen to him, and he doesn't know how, and that's why Celie tells him to beat her. So it's not like he's not like thinking about it and breaking the generational cycle or whatever. Right. I think he's just like a less naturally violent man, and he sees that as an issue for himself. So like I guess he kind of turns it around. I think we're supposed to understand he's turned it around later, especially because Sophia does go back to him, and she probably wouldn't accept it if he hadn't changed. But like, we don't really even see a redemption arc of him. We see him regret the decision because she leaves, but we don't see him like contend with that, or like a really in-depth scene of them together later and how he's treating her now or anything like that. So I think that he is accidentally a better man, not intentionally.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely paint him more as like he's in love with Sophia, and I think
that's true.
That's kind of what's guiding him, because he doesn't know, like he doesn't know how to be with a woman like Sophia, because he's only known that like a man is in charge.
I mean, they focus on his reaction as a kid. With that first night that Celie comes to live at Mister's and he gets slapped, they show Harpo's reaction of like horror at what's going on. Right. I think it's both. I think there's a little bit of like, he's probably trying, and I think you're right. I mean, it doesn't show. I don't know. Maybe it goes into more detail in the book. The movie definitely doesn't actually show any kind of redemption, but I don't think it really shows redemption for Mister either. But we'll talk about that in a minute.
I think, when we talk about Celie, but
yeah, Danielle Brooks, please give her every flower on earth, every purple flower on earth, because she is so good in this movie. Who's next? Shug?
Shug.
Shug, Molly's new icon.
Oh my God. When she just enters the film and that song that they sing to introduce her.
Shug Avery's coming to town.
Generally people don't get this kind of entrance unless they're a villain. And so I love this villain entrance song for a queen. And then, but more importantly, when she enters on the boat to the juke.
Oh my
Again,
God.
Like these are the shots where I was like, this is a gorgeous film. Yeah.
I want nothing more in life than to enter a party on a boat like Shug Avery does for, because it's so great, because Celie comes down the stairs dressed up and Mister's like thrown by the fact that she looks good. And then she says, like, Shug said she wanted to make a dramatic entrance. So we just cut to behind the boat and we see her moving towards it. And it's perfect. And then she begins to sing musical theater's greatest, and to my knowledge, only homage to the clitoris. And so I think that we should talk about that.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's
push the button.
Let's push the button.
Let's push the button.
Now listen, all you red hot lovers, you ought to know what to do. You ought to know what to do. There ain't nothing wrong with nothing. That's right with all of you. So when tonight you make your lover cry out like a lion roar, tell your neighbors your new kitty found the queen she looking for.
It sounds so good. It actually, I had to
good.
think about that. I was like, I don't think I've heard Taraji sing like this before. And I had to make sure, like, she did sing it right. Because I think I've heard her sing in the Muppets Haunted Mansion on Disney Plus. She sang like as a bit.
It was like my first question walking out, whether she sang it. And I wrote, like, did Taraji, and Google autofilled Taraji P. Henson sing her role in Color Purple. I was like, everyone's curious about this because it's an amazing performance vocally. Yeah.
She sounds amazing. Wow, Shug.
Wow, Shug.
Wow, Shug.
I mean, this Shug Avery, I was really scared because I was like, I don't know how this character has so much power and presence, right? She's made it out, and she has men do, like, Mister, who is like the antagonist of the film, basically falls to every whim. Like she literally controls him. And so it's just like, I'm so scared because she has all this power. I'm scared like how she's going to treat Celie, and the way that it like blossoms obviously into like a relationship. And I was so taken by it that when she leaves that first time, that was probably the first one of the, I remember feeling really scared because I was like, I feel like Celie, how long is she going to take to come back and to take her away?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she has an energy that is magnetic. Yeah.
Yeah, she's great. There's two moments that I thought were really interesting in this film, because I was assuming, I think when this started, that it was going to be like a movie about how Black women support each other, which it is, but I thought that it was not going to have any moments where they didn't support each other, where there were no problems in their friendship or whatever. And I think the one for Sophia is when she reveals that she was like, I'm jealous of how much Harpo loves you. And that's why I told him to do that. Yeah. And it's so incredible. The only way to move forward in their friendship is for that reveal to happen. And then the other one that I thought was very interesting is when Celie comes down the stairs and she sees Mr. and Shug like kind of coupled up in the living room or whatever. And there's like a unspoken look between the two of them, and Shug knows she's wrong, but I thought I was like, oh, this is so much more interesting than I thought it was actually going to be, because it wasn't I'm sorry, but it was a recognition that Celie is like a human being, and unfortunately up until this point she has been recognized as a human very little in this film. So it was very I thought very impactful, and I was like, oh, I'm glad they included that as a portion.
I mean, honey, now this is a movie about polyamory. Am I right? In terms of Shug and Celie's relationship, and the way that Celie has no issue with her being with Mr. Now, Celie doesn't love Mr., but like, it's complicated, but there's never like jealousy that comes into this picture. No. That's not the problem that exists. I agree that like that scene, Shug is giving her a look to say like, you're right. Like, not I'm sorry, but like, I know that this is your husband and it's weird that I'm just like so blatantly here to sleep with him.
Yeah.
And then Shug later brings Celie to her house in Memphis, and her husband has no issue with this at all.
Yeah.
Even though they're very clearly, I mean, like, I don't like, maybe we're supposed to understand that the husband doesn't really know what's going on between Shug and Celie, but like, I feel like he probably does get it to some extent. And he seems to be, my interpretation is like, Shug married this guy, one, because he's obviously rich because he has an amazing house. But like, two, I think he is a man who understands that he can't tie Shug down, right? Like that being married to her means like she says like, we're going to go to this house in rural Georgia and we're going to go get this woman. She's going to stay in our house. And you say, yes, ma'am. Like that is the deal if you're going to be married to Shug. And so I just love that like it's a story where like there's room for everybody, and the complicatedness of the relationships comes from people being mistreated, but not from a rule of like, there's one way that relationships have to be. It can only be like one person at a time, like whatever. I think that there is some really beautiful, like love kind of multiplies instead of divides kind of stuff going on with the complexities of these relationships.
I also think this casting is also brilliant because I think we all know Taraji P. Henson as this character who's outspoken, like very, like just like an excitable person. Like she's always like herself when she does like interviews or like talk shows.
She's magnanimous.
Yes. And very charismatic and very magnetic. And I love that the Shug character had like things to still work through with her father, the Reverend.
Yes.
That showed at least like, this is not just like a stock character that like, it's not Deus Ex Shug. Like this is still also a person in this world still going through stuff, and she's choosing to
truly
do it.
And the movie doesn't end when she leaves. A lesser piece ends right with that table scene, and then she leaves. Goes to Memphis and all is well, happily ever after. But that's not the end of her story.
Yeah.
Or even when Shug like I was worried when she the first time Shug left, it was like, that's it. And this is about this woman who's like, she makes everyone feel special, but like you're not really special. Like that's a very well-known trope of like, especially like a performer character who's like so good at charming people, and like you think it's something significant, but it's a small drop in the pan for them. But like Celie does mean something for Shug, and she does come back for her. And it feels like she just waited until she had the place that Celie could stay, right? Like it seems so intentional. The means to get Celie out of there. And so Shug remaining this important person in Celie's life. And I love the fact that it's like, also, like, I agree. Like, I love that she has the whole problem with the minister and slash father. And like, she's allowed to have her own story and her own flaw. Like everyone in this movie, except for maybe Nettie, has like clear flaws that they're dealing with. But also like Shug is like sitting next to Celie at the end, but it doesn't feel like, oh, now we're a couple. And so now I can have my own life. Like she doesn't need Shug to save her either. It doesn't feel like Shug becomes this all important, like replacing Mr. or anything like that. Shug and loving Shug is like a part of her story, but it's not the whole story either. And I love that it doesn't feel like it's a saving each other kind of a narrative either. Like saving each other in moments, but not like it's a movie about her being saved by romance.
Yes. Cause like what you said, when they leave Memphis, like the movie could have ended even when they get to Memphis, and like now Shug just lives her life starting anew. But the fact that kind of life still continues for her, like when she gets, the store and her father dies,
I don't think Shug comes with her.
Shug doesn't really. No. I think she's there to sing the pants song, but Shug's not part of her life. She really just. It's the thing of like, you just have to listen to the people that are willing to give you a chance, or willing to kind of to get you out, But then like, it's because of that. It's because Shug said she needs to see the world, and she does, and because of that is when she feels like then she can make a decision of like, get my house back, or like. Yeah,
it's so interesting that the plot of this movie hinges on like, will she ever see Nettie again? When the real actual character story arc is like, will she ever love herself?
Right.
And it's treated you have to have all of this growth that she learns. I mean, she learns from Sophia, but she also learns from Shug. And there's so much growth she does as a person to get to the point where she sings I'm Here and is able to have.
It's a classic want versus need story that what Seely wants is to be reunited with Nettie, but what she needs is to learn how to love herself. Because the character is often not, a psychologically complex character is not driven by the thing that they really need, because we are genuinely not able often to identify what we truly need, right? And it's such a good, rich character.
Yeah.
Before we leave Shug, can we play What About Love? So that's the...
Oh
we have to talk about this.
This... Oh, let's play it.
Is that me who's floating away, lifted up to the clouds by a kiss? Never felt nothing like this. Will you be my light in the storm? Will I see a new world in your eyes? With you, my whole spirit rise.
I mean,
it's so gorgeous.
It is
the Fred and Ginger
Fred and Ginger. They're watching this movie, and then all of a sudden they are the movie, and the set is so presentational. It looks like a set. It looks like a concert set, and it's them dancing. They are in these gowns.
It's the 20s.
It's the 20s, and it's just the entire going into it. I knew that there was implied an implied relationship of Shug and Seely. Watching it, I was like, oh, it was not implied at all.
It's not implied. It's not implied. They have a beautiful love song together. They dance in this beautiful dream sequence. And I was thinking when I was watching this too about I'm sure that there is a bunch of discourse and people who are so thrilled to see two Black women in love with each other right on screen. Totally. But I was also so inspired by seeing two middle-aged Black women in love with each other on screen too, that I was like, this is not a thing that we get to see, two women who are not slight little 20-somethings who are in love with each other. It's just so gorgeous and so fulfilling. And then the kiss that they have in the movie theater is so sweet. And then we cut to them waking up next to each other. And I mean, I assume you noticed, but Shug has her arm around Seely's waist when they're waking up. They've been cuddling all night. It's so...
It's very tender.
It's so sweet. It's very tender. And I think that they did a really good job of making it explicit, but also not too explicit where then it starts to become the exploitative, people want to see women having sex with each other thing. Where it's so clearly about it's a physical expression of a real love that they have for each other. And it's not about the sexual tension of it necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even the scene where she tells Seely to play her record, she winds the record, and then she goes into the stream to that song where she's like,
on the record,
I get to finally see what men love about Shug Avery.
Yeah.
And it's the scene of that Shug in this bathtub on this giant turntable.
It's such a cool visualization.
The visual is amazing. Because something that I was getting a little nervous about before Shug came on was there are a number of musical numbers that are a person walking down a dirt road before this, where I was is this going to be the choice every time? Is person walking down a dirt road. And when we were on the record, I was like, oh no, there's many choices that are going to happen. Okay, great. Yeah.
That's definitely the Black is King influence that I felt oh, this is a person who understands music and how to visualize it.
Yes.
Yeah. And trusts the audience to be yeah, we're on a record. Yeah. It's so, I think, Shug, great character. I feel ready to move on to Seely and everything
and her
else.
Pants, Miss Seely's
fancy pants.
Fancy pants.
So Seely, if you notice, she does not sing in scene until until Fancy Pants, until the pants.
Oh, the Fancy Pants song.
Which you could even say the dress, the pants sequence is not really reality. I mean, it's obviously not reality, but it's
the music's not diegetic. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's the first time she is in scene where she's like actually in the location where she is singing. The first time her character sings, I'm not including the like the song the sisters have on the tree. I'm not including that. Really count. So the first time is when the rattle happens and she sings She Be Mine, which is about
imagining
Olivia, her daughter that she had to. Was Olivia the most recent one?
Olivia was
no, Adam is the most recent.
Adam is the most recent.
So
Adam's the
older.
youngest.
Yeah.
Olivia's older.
But she's the one that she sees in that store, I believe.
Yes. So she sees Olivia in the store. She goes outside and then she has this song dream sequence about Olivia, which I will play a little bit of She Be Mine now. It is original to this film. It is a new song.
I see my baby girl. Can't be no one else. Looking just like me and my daddy. Boys in a sausage. I sees her hand on the lady's shoulder. She come out, I'll meet you in her fist. She got my eyes and her face a done kiss. I sews Olivia on her daddies, little stars and flowers too. I know she sees same things I do. Oh, the Lord don't send me a sign. Oh, I know she be mine.
It was reinstated. I'm sorry, it was not original.
Okay.
So She Be Mine was reinstated. It was written for the musical and then it was cut before it premiered. So it was reinstated for this film.
I want to say, firstly, it makes a lot more sense now that I know that Felicia Pearl and Posse is 30, because holy cow, her voice is like so like full, and like if she was actually 19, I would be stunned by this, but like she has the voice of like a full grown adult for sure.
Yeah.
The way that this scene like transitions into this song where you're seeing her looking at the baby and she's so happy, and then we hear the like blues spiritual beats and the like hitting of the rocks and everything, it like fills you with such a sense of dread, where the disconnect between her joy of seeing the baby and then the auditory experience of the song is like so jarring in like the correct way. Like it's trying to tell you something about the moment. Yeah, that her joy is misplaced.
It can't be joy,
because the visuals of these like men, like prisoners, like mining, and then like
a chain gang.
And then splashing, like later women like doing laundry in the fountain, like splashing. It's like, it's not necessarily like joyous visuals. It's just it's
hard labor.
It's hard labor.
Yeah. And I think too, what she has joy at seeing her daughter, because at this point she is pretty certain that her dad is like killing them. Alfonso is killing her children. And this is her first sign that like they're alive. They're not with her, but they're definitely alive. So at least that's something. But I think the visuals contextualize with. So the other thing, okay, so what I was saying was, I think these are fantasy songs. And then I just remembered that she has Keep It Movin'. With her and Nettie have that song Keep It Movin' when they like are supposed to go collect firewood and they don't, and they like run around the town.
That's also original.
That's original. That's original to this film, and then the song in the credits is original.
Okay, so that's what I felt that song was original. I felt like, oh, this feels modern. Like it feels different, because I know in the original musical they had the two sisters had a song called Our Prayer, and it's like a prayer that they recite to each other, that they'll always be together, that they kind of like sing as they, and then like the song itself is very much like a musical theater song of like, who's that? That's Shug Avery. Who's that? That's Mr. Like it's kind of like the song is the motif for basically the whole sequence of them as kids, as sisters, that I was like, okay, I understand taking that out, because those were replaced ultimately by scenes to show and depict their relationship. So, but it felt like the most like contemporary song. I was like, oh, I bet this is different because it doesn't feel like it's in conversation with it. If it doesn't feel like the same.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ignore that song, then my point still holds.
Okay.
Which you could even say like it's once Nettie leaves that she has like lost. She's not even able to like sing in her regular life anymore.
Yeah.
Sophia sings Hell No, and Shug sings all the songs Shug sings, and those are because those characters are able to express themselves in that way. But she is containing it all in these dream sequences in her head because she is so scared of living out loud in that way.
Yeah.
Until Pants buy these pants or whatever the song is, but really until I'm Here is when it's like it is. It's probably the most diegetic. Like I think. You could argue that you could make the argument that she is like singing that song in space.
Yes.
And I would believe it more than
I would make that argument, but I think it is very grounded in the moment and in the space that she's in for sure. She feels so much more connected to herself. In that. I thought this about her being connected to herself. Yeah.
Because I knew the song separate from the show. I thought the song was going to happen at the end of the dinner scene. Cause she says, I may be poor, I may be black, I may be ugly, but I'm here. Like
that, so, I thought that too, because I also thought that it was the Act 1 closer of the musical for some reason.
I thought so too, and then
it just feels like an Act 1 closer, maybe.
But then I remembered I watched that clip in the makeup tutorial, and I remember her looking like Celie in Celie's pants, like
she's wearing the yellow pants.
She was wearing, she looks
pants,
older. So I was like, oh yeah, I think it is a true 11 o'clock number then, because I was like, when is the song going to happen? Because she already left Mr. So I was like, what else is there to happen for her to kind of have to like reinstate kind of like her independence?
Yeah. From the lyrics of that song that I knew, I thought she sang it to Mr. I thought it was a song to him. And I'm just checking real quick it says, so in the Act 2, I'm reading the synopsis on Wikipedia of the stage version. While walking home, Celie realizes she isn't destroyed by this and for the first time feels a deep love for herself. I'm here. So it is always like a song to herself.
Oh, because in the musical, Shug tells Celie that she is basically going to be with the musician. And I think they still have that moment where
I think that's from the book too.
Mr. comes and tries to like be like, I want to change.
I want to talk about Mr.'s redemption or non-redemption in a second. Did either of you get nervous when his redemption. Did either of you get nervous when she accepted the store about the fact that he lives like outside of town or whatever, but she had like left him for Memphis and then she was going back to be in like way closer physical proximity to her very physically abusive ex. Like I got nervous about like, are you sure you feel safe opening this store here? He doesn't become violent again, but I was a little surprised. It felt a little fast from when she had left initially.
But I do wonder if this like the land is on her name. You know, I wonder if like that is such a increase that she's basically protected by the town. She is someone that like,
okay, but
you know what I mean?
Okay. Yes. This actually is a question I have. Is she protected by the town? Because something I think is interesting is at the beginning of the movie, she's very visibly pregnant. And then there's like a woman in the town who asks her like, oh, what are you going to name your baby? So it's very clearly communicated in the costumes that both sisters are considered children at this point in time because they're wearing these like all white dresses that like I know from enough turn of the century media is like what you wore before you were considered an adult in society. Yeah. And people know that she's pregnant. And I was like, does anyone ask questions about like who the father is of these children? Like I was kind of disturbed by how open it seemed like the pregnancy was because I don't know how people were possibly not saying who got this child pregnant. So I'm not really sure what to make of the town as a place in terms of protecting Celie.
Yeah. That's the thing that's why I would like to watch that original Broadway production or like the stage version, because I think when I was starting the movie, I liked that there was a Greek chorus element and then it basically disappears. It really is just that first part to establish the town. But as I was thinking more, I'm like, I don't know if I would like to, because then what does that say about, like this town knowing the business that's happening to this girl and how it's wrong, but it feels like no one's doing anything because well, that's none of my business. We have to, like every household is its own household, like that's not very church-like. Like I could tell that it could start getting muddy if the town and the chorus was more involved.
I mean, I think it's very specific that they are aware. I mean, we don't know. Are they aware that it's like real. His, you know what I mean? Like, and obviously whatever, like, I don't even want to get into
when he dies, it was
yes,
like,
that's what I was going to point out. His eulogy is like, he wasn't a great guy.
Yeah.
So it's very clear that they know he was like kind of a pile of shit.
Yeah.
But also I don't not think that the town also had a difference of view of Nettie versus Celie as well.
Yeah.
It's not
Nettie
in the
was
text,
by the rest of the town.
Yeah. It just feels like Nettie was the smart one. Nettie went to school and
Nettie's
Celie
going to be a teacher.
Nettie was going to be a teacher and Celie was the one who's like,
she's a worker.
I have to buy someone to marry her, like to marry her off.
Yeah.
But I mean, no one is asking questions about how he marries like a 14-year-old girl. Like there's a lot of questions that aren't asked about this film, but also like it's rural Georgia in 1900. Like there's a lot of people who aren't asking questions about anything because they're trying to just live their lives day to day.
But Celie.
I think in terms of like great main characters of stage and screen, this has to be in the top 10. Like she is so, and she is, because she's so, I don't want to say demure is probably not the right word, but like she's so soft spoken for much of the film that it is.
And so passive. It's interesting for her to be a great character who's so passive for so much of it. Yeah.
But I think there is a real, you feel for her so quickly, and not just because of her circumstances, but I think she is so sweet and kind. And I think the really like getting that scene at the very beginning where she like learns to sew from her mom and having that included in her like story.
And that becomes her like
her way out. I think it's so smart the way it's set up and for her journey to go on. And she is not a perfect character. She's a lot of things she has to learn in order to become the full self-actualized version of herself. But I think Fantasia did such a great job with this performance. And it is such a big ask to like be this passive and like still have like not have the audience want to like rip their hair out every time you're on screen getting like because like you want her to stand up for herself, but you also, it's set up in such a way that you know why she is not able to or unwilling or scared to. Like she's a victim of circumstance in that way.
I watched this clip of them being interviewed, and well, first off, Fantasia's already played this role before, right? On stage. So she's familiar with the role. I remember in an interview, she's saying that she was hesitant to accept the role initially for the movie because she had done it like years ago. So it's like stepping back into a role that you've like almost 10, like way more than 10 years later. But then to kind of go back to that familiar territory with like new lived in experiences, like, would you want to go back to like relive such a heavy character? So she said that she took time to kind of think about it before wanting to do it. And then in the interview, Taraji P. Henson actually also says like, I know what it's like to play these big, very, like traumatic characters. And because this is like one of Fantasia's like biggest roles, she felt like on set, she was like, I wanted to like, crack jokes with her all the time so I could make sure that she doesn't take Celie home with her. Like this is a character that you can leave and not feel like you have to take that energy outside of her, because that's like, this is definitely a character that it would be so hard to shake off if you had to play and live this. Yeah. This character is so, especially in the first half, that I think when you get to the dinner scene, like
the first two acts are just so heavy. Yeah.
There's just all these moments that you want her to finally like speak out. And that when she finally does, it's that great scene on the table, because the audience is already rooting for you and is waiting for this to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would be remiss if we did not listen to a bit of, I mean, honestly, not even a bit of the end of I'm Here.
most of all, I'm thankful for loving who I really am. I'm beautiful. Yes, I'm beautiful. And I'm
Did you go off camera to cry for a second there, Adam?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good. It is first of all, she says I'm beautiful to the camera, doesn't she? In the movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She breaks.
She's just looking in
she
your soul.
Is looking into your soul. The fact that it's Fantasia, knowing that her voice is truly one of the most unique signature voices that we have in like American music.
Mhm.
The fact that it's her voice singing this, it's truly flossing my brain. It's so good.
It worked. Like the performance is Broadway level, like emotions, like big performance, staring at a camera that's like inches from her face, and it never feels artificial or too much. You know,
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's what's so impressive about the performance is that it reaches those emotional heights and it never becomes melodrama.
Right. Absolutely. The way it is like anticlimactic when she's like the melody stopping for the I'm beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Music really popped off with this one.
It's so good. It's so
this song
powerful.
Is an homage to music and what music
truly
is.
and what yeah, I mean, if anyone I'm already just thinking about the song.
All three of us are crying, by the way, in case anybody wants to know.
This is my go-to if I just need to cry. I will watch Fantasia singing I'm Here, LaShawn singing I'm Here, Cynthia Erivo singing I'm Here, like Jennifer Hudson singing I'm Here to the Oprah Kennedy Center Honors. It is just a marathon of like amazing voices singing the song. Oh.
It's just so powerful, and it's so there's not even like it's so it's like it's true power. It's true power coming from one voice, like one person feeling like, especially like Celie's story where there has been zero, like she had no power this entire time.
Yeah.
To then ultimately get a store, like be backed by like the laws of the land that like you have.
This is yours.
This is
and
yours.
It's because Cinderella fought for her right to own this dress shop.
It's because Cinderella stood on that statue.
Yes.
It all comes back to that.
Because Jolly killed the kid. It's great.
It's also not even just like the voice in the song.
Yeah.
It's like it's so
you see it in her. She's very expressive. In a way,
reminds me of Home from The Wiz, in the way it's like I have learned everything I have to learn from the story that you have been watching for the past 2 hours and 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to tell you exactly what I've learned, and I'm going to sound incredible doing it. Oh, it's so good.
Totally.
Okay.
Now that we've all cooled our heels,
Do we want to talk about Mr.?
This redemption.
Yeah. So it seemed like, now I'm forgetting, because it was a little while, like an hour ago that I did this, that I read the different versions.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like he is maybe the most forgiven in this version in this adaptation.
Oh,
I think maybe, okay. Can we pause and I'm going to actually look it up?
Yeah, I'm going to look up something too.
Okay.
I'll read the book.
Okay. Okay, I have the movie one, so let me know, because we'll start with the book.
So in the book, it just says that Where did it go? I scrolled accidentally. Celie learns that Mr. is suffering from a considerable decline in fortunes and begins calling him by his first name, Albert. Mr. proposes that they marry, quote, in the spirit as well as in the flesh, but Celie declines. That is the last thing that is referenced to him in this Wikipedia summary of the book.
Yeah. Okay. In the 1985 film, the plot about him getting the letter from U.S. Immigration Services happens. Mm-hmm. Or I guess in this one, it's like he gets a letter from Nettie saying, can you go to Immigration Services? And he does the thing where he sells his, or maybe not sells his land, but he gets money and he arranges for Nettie to come back. But it says that he watches from a distance as they reunite. So it's like he privately redeems himself, but he doesn't ask Celie to forgive him. Mm-hmm. He sees the error of his ways and then he does something for her to try to make up for it, but he doesn't like insert himself into the situation in the 1985.
In this version, he comes to the pants shop. He buys a pair of pants, which are it is a funny little comedic bit that he buys this like sequined pants, basically.
Yeah.
Gives Celie like basically the just stuff that from their house.
Yeah.
And doesn't ask explicitly. It's more of just like I don't even remember if it was like
the insinuation is like, can we try again?
Can we try?
And she says no.
He says something like, maybe sometime we could, and she like cuts him off and says like, I think you and I should be friends. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if he was going to say have dinner or try again or whatever, but like you understand that he wants to try to rekindle something, and she's saying, but she says be friends. And I think that seems generous.
That's already generous.
I mean, we have seen him that her curse worked and that he has been brought low.
Yes.
I feel like she hasn't seen that though. And
just like
I don't know, a scene where a man like buys some pants that weren't selling feels like maybe like a Harpo could do that. And I'd say, yeah, Sophia, maybe we extend an olive branch.
Yeah.
He's learned his lesson. A Mr. I feel like buying a pair of pants seems like not quite adequate.
Yeah. I mean, we can maybe plausibly assume that because she's in the town that she's heard about what he's gone through.
What's gone through.
Yeah.
I mean, like locusts.
Like full on plagues. Yeah.
It's kind of iconic. Like if I had that power, listen.
Oh my God. I was about to be like the fantasy of being able to curse a man in this way.
I know. Like, and classic biblical plague.
Yeah.
I didn't know locusts could exist.
But it looks like, I mean, again, I haven't seen the movie, I haven't seen the musical, and I haven't read the book, but I think this is the only version that ends with this
the
Easter. Like the dinner.
I think so. When you like,
because in the movie, it's the 1985 movie was just from a distance. They reunite and the two sisters bond over a hand clapping game from their childhood. Fine. The book, as Celie realizes she is content without Shug returns, having ended her relationship with Jermaine. Nettie, Samuel, Olivia, Adam, and Tashi all arrive at Celie's house. Nettie and Celie reunite after 30 years, introducing one another to their respective families. And in the musical, several years later, while hosting a 4th of July picnic for the community, Celie hears a car horn and a familiar voice from her neighborhood. It is Nettie singing the clapping song they sang years ago. They both run to each other and hug, with Celie's children right behind them, all grown up. After learning that Mr. and Shug have made the reunion possible, Celie thanks them and God for reuniting with her sister. I think it's interesting to change it to Easter, though. It's very specific.
I mean, it's forgiveness and resurrection.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. A little bit of it was like iconic, especially when he got the invitation to like her annual Easter thing, that I was like, I mean, this is like generous, but it's also a little bit of a flex of like, oh, I do this every year. I just want you to know, like, I'm successful enough to host an Easter dinner every year for the whole
everyone
town.
In the town. Yeah.
Everyone in town.
So that was kind of great. I don't even know that he like can't come to the Easter dinner, but I want him to be like on the other side of the tree. I don't want him to sit
next. I don't want him in the head of the table. Totally.
Like he's not like literally next to her, but he's like in the line of like the people of her family, I feel like. And it's like, he doesn't deserve to be like in the family anymore.
That's how I felt too. It felt, if this is the true like lesson, right? Like to how far can you forgive? For me personally, I was like, this is a brave woman. This is a strong woman. Because
I understand the narrative, or like the way of thinking of forgiveness is like, it's about you and it's about you not holding on to the grudge. And I think that Celie does forgive him in the sense that she comes into her own and she doesn't worry about what Mr. thinks of her
down anymore.
Right. And so I think it's good to have something that happens that symbolically shows like, you know what, Mr. can be here or not, but like, it doesn't bother me because he's like, he's truly unimportant to me. I've moved on and I've forgiven him in that way, I think is great. But to forgive him, to be friends, to have him sit near your children at Easter dinner, like, I don't think that he has earned a place of trust in her life.
Especially since they didn't have a mutual relationship only until after he was being punished, like in these plagues, and she became successful.
Right. But part of the condition of the plague was you have to do right by me.
Yeah.
So the question is, does he do right by her? Is it enough because sensibly what it is that him bringing Nettie back sets everything right. So is it enough? That's the question.
I think it's fine. I can be satisfied with it being enough for God to stop sending him locusts. But I can't accept it being enough for Nettie to have for Celie to have him as part of her life.
Yeah.
That's what I can't get over.
I think too, there is a thing that one of my only criticisms is like, at this point, I think he's like older when they get married in 1904. I think he's like at least in his 20s, if not his 30s. Like he's definitely well older than her. And they go through 40 years of life. So at this point, he would be like maybe 70. I think that could be another kind of like understanding of like, this man is at the end of his life. I'm not saying it's correct or not, but I think it would maybe lead to more understanding as to why Celie's like, he doesn't do anything anymore.
In case listeners think I am being unsympathetic, I need to like emphasize to you that this man abused this woman.
This man
daily for 20 years.
He should be in prison.
He should be in prison. So,
and also like, it's not like an abusive relationship. Like it's passionate and sometimes it bubbles over into, it's not a Billy Bigelow situation where like, I hate Billy Bigelow, but like he does love June or whatever. And he's
Julie
or Julie or whatever. But like, he is incapable of that. Like there's no affection between these two people. There is no love. He acquires her in a business purchase.
In this movie is Shug.
Yeah.
Yeah. He acquires this woman in a business purchase. He thinks lowly of her in every moment that they interact with each other. And he physically hits her in every scene they're in together. Like there is no ounce of respect or admiration that exists in this relationship until he buys an ugly pair of pants from her. Like, I just think that it is without a doubt, like the most abusive relationship we've ever seen in a musical.
Yeah.
And so it requires quite an extreme atonement for it to feel like a full forgiveness is warranted.
That was like the toughest pill for me to swallow as the movie was wrapping up, because it ended up, I mean, he bought the pants. He's like, I look pretty good in these pants. And like, you're supposed to laugh at him. And the entire time I'm like, I don't want to see you anymore. Like,
it would almost work better if he even like found another woman and then we got to see him treat that woman well. And then maybe so I could see him at the Easter. Like he had learned his lesson and we see evidence that he's learned his lesson. I don't know, not that I like wish another woman to be with Mr. But like, do you know what I mean? Like I
would have loved.
I see that he is sad, but not that he has learned.
Yeah. I did like the scene of like Harpo kicking him out. I wish it was a little bit more kind of like, if he's only going to listen to a man, like would he, because he listens to Harpo before, right? Of like, I own this part of the land, so I'm going to build a juke, or like I'll build a house for me and Sophia.
I think it's very smart for him to fall asleep in the field and wake up with like mud all over his face. I mean, to like fully symbolize that he is at the lowest point of his life.
Yeah.
I think that's very smart. And I liked that choice. I think so like imagine on a journey with me where he has gone to prison for domestic abuse. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes through what Sophia went through. He goes through what Sophia went through. But we don't see anything like we see with Sophia. Like we just see, we know he goes to prison and then one day he comes out and he comes to the pants shop and wants to buy a pair of pants. I mean, that is he basically just got, I'm not advocating for Mr. I swear to God, I know I sound like it right now. He's a horrible character.
You're imagining. Yeah.
What he got is God's version of prison. It is his chance to like reflect on what has happened and atone for whatever. Do we think like the question is like
down, yeah.
Are people able to atone and do right? Or you just wanted to see?
Yes. In theory, no, I have nothing against the idea of atonement and forgiveness in general.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I see that he faced consequences, but I didn't see him prove that he learned a lesson.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like, I guess he's kind to her in the pants shop. He's like amiable with her, whatever. But like, I needed to see him actually say like, this is why I was wrong about this, and prove that he can be a gentle person to people who he thinks are below him, because it's like not enough to like just face the low point, but then like I need to see him climbing back out of it and how he's going to be better as a result.
Yeah.
It's like Christmas Carol ends. It would be like if Christmas Carol ended on like Scrooge weeping over his tombstone in his future, and then we just see him at Bob Cratchit's for Christmas. Like, and
but
not that there's like
really
an extended sequence, but like you see enough in Christmas Carol of like ways that he is exhibiting generosity where you're like, he has learned the specific lesson of being generous, and he's showing that to other characters to build up to then sending the turkey to Bob Cratchit or whatever. Like, it's just we're missing the like, and the lesson that I learned is it's like but be nice to this witch who cursed me is basically what he learned.
I think you are supposed to, at least I think you are supposed to read more into what he does to get Nettie back as more action than I think maybe you are reading into it. But
you're right though, to think like,
I don't disagree that I wish I had seen more.
And also Celie doesn't really know that until Nettie is there and Shug being
Celie never knows that. Celie, not in this movie, is never explicitly disclosed to her. And that would be fine.
Maybe as soon as the camera cuts, he was like, anyway, I did that.
It sounds like in the 1985, he does that amendment, but he doesn't. He stays back. And that I would also be fine with, of him privately, and one of his lessons being like, I should now leave this woman alone. Yes. That would also be a good ending.
I should leave this entire family alone.
But like to Celie's knowledge, he just bought a pair of pants from her and now he's invited to Easter? Come on, girl.
Can I also say this though? So she gets the store and she's basically probably living upstairs. Like all I could think is like, you are now living where you were like raped as a child. That's all I could think is like, how do you even she's a better person than anybody on this podcast. I'll play that.
Because she has that scene in the mirror where she sees her mother and says like, I got our house back. And so
she really does seem to have an ability to selectively remember the good parts of her childhood. I mean, we honestly never see her contend with the sexual abuse as a child. Like it's never really addressed other than wanting her children.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the abuse to me was like, when it was enacted on Nettie, do you know what I mean? Like there was that thing of like, did she accept all along that like it's okay for it to happen to me, just not Nettie? You know, I think
that's the
or maybe the understanding that like if it's happening to me, then she isn't. It's not happening to her. Luckily, I'll take it for her.
Yeah,
I mean it's horrifying.
It's horrible. Yeah.
But she sings "I'm Here" and it all works.
And it ends. I mean, it really does. It's one of the most beautiful endings of like a movie musical I think we've seen. And it's like visually,
it beats any Apple Orchard. It beats any luau party. You know,
wow, the luau party is pretty great, but yeah,
not motorcycles. I think in the East
there were not many motorcycles.
Not enough cool riders.
There was
for sure.
At least one motorcycle. I'm remembering a shot of like somebody arriving on a motor. Maybe it's the postman or something. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's beautiful. It gave me like a Circle of Life feel. It gave me like a cinematic ending.
Also beautiful, like I feel like we haven't talked about the title of it, but like it comes from Shug talking about the beauty of things around them and her like pantheistic beliefs about God being in everything, like appreciating the color purple and the flowers. And then in the song that everybody /Celie sings, she talks about like beauty in God and in the trees and in the sky. So there's this very like religious but like kind of almost pagan like appreciation of the nature around them and how it represents God. That is very beautiful.
Yeah. And that's the color purple.
And that's the color purple.
That's the color purple.
I don't think us feel old at all. I think this is the youngest us ever felt. Men.
Amen.
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 This movie has like 87.
We didn't really go into Christianity, did we?
We didn't really talk about Christianity.
It's a pantheistic musical. It believes that God is in everything, and it's a pro-interventionist God, I guess, because she expresses doubts about God because of keeping her children away from her, but then her children come back at the end, so she says, "Look at what God has done."
Yeah, I guess there is technically a Deus Ex Machina in that is what helps Nettie get to America, but
then it's also
like her story kind of really ends when she like loves herself.
But then the plagues.
Yeah, that's her arc. Yeah, and the plagues come from God as well. So God is very involved in making things happen in the story.
But also, like she struggles with like understanding of like a God who allows all of that, like her children to be. It starts at the beginning of the film where a God who allows her children to be taken away. Like I think it's very interesting that I think there's a bunch of people who struggle with whatever their belief is about God, and then finally come to a decision in terms of like yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily new or unique, but it's I don't know. It's beautifully told.
It's that scene in the dinner table when Sophia says, "I didn't believe in God," but then Celie came every week, and she says that I believe in God because I see God in you. And then she cursed Mister. So Celie is
Celie's God.
Yeah.
God.
There you go.
God is a woman.
God is a woman.
Okay, so on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie holds an 87% certified fresh.
Not high enough, honestly.
Richard Lawson from Vanity Fair, right? It's 95% from audience reviews, just so you know. Richard Lawson, Vanity Fair. This color purple is more about how the songs reflect a well-known story rather than the story itself, which can make the film seem thin. We spend much of our time admiring the thorough performances, Domingo's purring villainy, Henson's sexy glide complemented by kindness, but otherwise waiting somewhat impatiently for the next song to begin. 13 numbers from the stage show were cut for the film, but there are still plenty to enjoy. In that way, Bazawule's film plays like a series of linked musical moments in the vein of a visual album, complete with sun-dappled imagery and kinetic camera work. Those who really want to live in every granular detail of Celie's journey toward actualization may find this version lacking. Perhaps it was the film's deliberate calculation that everyone is already so familiar with the color purple that this version could function most efficiently as a song delivery system. That premise is borne out to some degree, but one still yearns from Bazawule to slow down and let the viewer take in the texture and heartbeat of the piece. While grandly moving at the close, too much of this color purple relies on memories of color purple's past. That's the last sentence. Sorry.
I disagree. As a person who didn't see the other ones, I didn't feel like there was missing information or like I wasn't following the plot. So I
totally agree.
I think there's a lot of character work happening in those songs if you would pay attention, reviewer. Also, can I quickly, we didn't say this when we were talking about Mr. Speaking of Coleman, Domingo is his name, right?
Yes.
He's such a great villain. He does such a great job, such a despicable character, and he's doing an amazing job. I was bothered the whole time I was watching, being like, why do I know this man? And I remembered he was in Mount Rainey's Black Bottom, but I couldn't remember what I had originally seen him in. He's in Euphoria. He plays a former drug addict who's like a mentor, what's it called? And like sponsor. He's like the sponsor of Rue, which is Zendaya's character. And he's amazing in that. He also apparently was on the Big Gay Sketch Show, which I watched,
Yes,
but I don't
queer.
remember him being on. But he was on like the second and third seasons. Maybe it's because I mostly remember the first season. But shout out to any listeners who were big fans of Big A Sketch Show that this guy was in it too.
Back in the day. I saw him
back in the day with Kate McKinnon.
Yes, I saw him in the movie Zola, where he played kind of like he was a pimp. And I remember him being so compelling and scary in that.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh, he really knows how to access.
He's got
this.
a bit of like a could go off the rails at any moment energy that really works well as like a former drug addict, a villain, like a lot of lends itself to a lot of characters. Yeah.
Yes, but also is able to, I think this movie was really good at when Shug shows up, you can see why she would be enticed by him because he's such a different person when she's around.
Yes.
Which is, that's the horrifying line of when she's like, I'm scared of when you're going to leave.
Yeah. Okay.
And Shug is so surprised. Shug has no inkling of this side of him. It's so interesting. Yeah.
Remember when she almost killed him? It's very bold to like hit your wife and then have her take a straight blade to your neck to shave you. I was like,
it's very Voxek.
What?
The opera Voxek.
Oh,
it's about a guy who's like in the army and I think he's like sleep deprived or something. They like are torturing him basically, but he needs the money. So he lets them keep him awake for like hours and hours on end. And then this guy who's been like tormenting him has him shave him. And it's like an iconic scene of like, oh my God, is he going to snap? But it shows how completely programmed he is that he doesn't slit the guy's throat.
Yeah, I've never heard of Voxek.
I mean, you definitely get that feeling. That entire scene.
It's so tense.
So tense. Ooh.
And she's gonna, I mean, he grabs her wrist. I think we're supposed to understand because
she's about to,
yeah.
Murtada Al-Fadl from the AV Club had this to say. Murtada Al-Fadl is black, by the way. I did try to seek out a couple black reviewers. Nice. Additionally, many of the characters' more dramatic moments are not songs. Though Barrino does her best, those moments resemble ones from the 1985 film, and she's unable to match Goldberg's memorable showing. In fact, the opposite happens as Barrino recalls Goldberg's more accomplished performance in Spielberg's better film. It might be unfair to compare, but that's what happens when a beloved classic is remade. Barrino fares better in her scenes with Henson. They have crackling chemistry, and Henson adds warmth and verve to those scenes. Domingo, who plays Ceely's abusive husband, brings out charm to his despicable character, showing why Shug would fall for him. As expected from the time the casting was announced, Brooks is the standout. Anyone who has seen her performance on Broadway or just heard about it comes in with big expectations, and she delivers on every last one. This is a display of sheer force and magnetism, and Brooks shines brightly from her big introduction to the last scene of the film. She carries all aspects of a star-making moment, the drama and comedy of it, as well as the show-stopping musical numbers. Bazawule can only focus on her when she's in the frame. Brooks walks away with the movie, and if there's any justice or real meritocracy in the world, this performance should assure her a long career of screen stardom.
I understand. I understand the review, the critical reviews of like, we have to talk about the original movie and compare it, even though they are doing different. They're two different things. Yeah. But it is like, there is a sense of watching this, like, I'm sure a lot of people felt that of like, I already know the story of The Color Purple, or at least I know enough of it. Like, it's culturally relevant that I know enough of Color Purple that I felt like for us, even though none of us had like read it or watched the original 85 movie, we knew enough of it and like knew enough of like, I think just how movie musicals work. I wonder if people were thrown off that it's like, could I believe this story to be told in a movie musical format?
Yeah. I do think I'm now feeling like maybe we should have checked in about the fact that none of us had seen the original and one of us should have watched it. Yeah. Like maybe we're missing a perspective on here because none of us had the comparing it to the other version experience that a lot of other people are going to have. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to read this review to you. Okay. This is from Aisha Harris of NPR, who I discussed earlier. She had the segment on Pop Culture Happy Hour. She did the review for the film as well. And I'm going to read bit of a lengthy segment, but I think she goes into a lot more detail that I think is very helpful. And Aisha Harris is a Black woman, so I think her perspective is important. Okay. While both previous iterations employed levity in their own ways, and Spielberg and screenwriter Menno Meyjes, both being white, were taken to task for it, accused of making the Black men characters to be buffoons, Bazawule's take is decidedly glossier and more cheerful. When this works, it works. His aesthetic eye is vivid and colorful, opening up Ceely's world with energetic ensemble musical numbers which give a sense of bustling Black community that exists beyond her suffocating life with Mr. and his rambunctious kids. There are highlighted interactions played up for laughs, like the constant bickering flirtation between Sophia and Harpo, and exultations of pleasure as conveyed at Henson's dynamic performance as the bold and freewheeling club singer Shug Avery. Celie and Shug get their own romantic duet set against the backdrop of a 1930s Hollywood musical. Yet there are some curious tonal decisions that seem to be born, at least in part, out of its mode as a musical theater adaptation, as well as out of an attempt to address some of the loudest critiques of the 1985 film. The instances of domestic abuse in which a character is hit are staged broadly, or rather as if the actors are on an actual live performance stage playing to the rafters, big wind-ups and dramatic slaps that for this viewer conjured the over-the-top manga-inspired violence of the Boondocks. The presumably unintentional effect is to literally knock the wind out of the abuse, to defang it so it doesn't feel quite so real. Then there's the famous scene where young Celie and Nettie are forcibly separated, which is remarkably subdued and truncated given the circumstances. In this case, it takes place during a rainstorm with Mr. wielding a shotgun as he demands Nettie leave his farm. But its emotional impact is dull. The exchange hurries by so quickly and almost perfunctorily as to erase any dramatic tension that should come out of this life-altering severing of a sisterly bond. Before there's any time for young Celie to process what it means, it's on to the next scene. Contrast with this with the same scene in Spielberg's film. Guttural cries of anguish punctuate a prolonged sequence of cruelty as the imposing figure of Danny Glover's Mr. physically hauls Nettie off his farm, with Celie dragging behind him while grasping onto her sister's hands for dear life. The effect is excruciating yet profound. Celie and Nettie's pain is wholly felt and lived in, which in turn makes their reunion all those years later that much stronger. Admittedly, it feels odd and even a little wrong to criticize a film for minimizing the trauma against Black women that's shown on screen. But exploitation and exploration are not the same, and with little exception, Bazawule and his screenwriter Marcus Gardley seem reluctant to sit too long in the discomforting facets of this story, choosing instead to over-index on joy. As Taraji P. Henson bluntly put it recently, quote, "The first movie missed culturally. We don't wallow in the muck. We laugh, we sing, we go to church, we dance, we celebrate, we fight for joy." End quote. Spielberg, for what it's worth, is among this film's executive producers. Considering the long, sordid history of Black pain on screen, this resistance is unsurprising. Henson is reverberating one of the many grievances some Black audience members had with the 1985 movie. A recurring thread in the controversy was the stark gender divide in reactions to the film's depiction of gendered violence, intergenerational trauma, and queer romance. Many Black women felt seen on the page and screen for the first time. Many straight Black men felt attacked and demonized for the 100th time. Yet the art and its themes, revisited in 2023, shouldn't be too afraid to embrace that tension. After all, Walker's original text exists precisely to shine a light upon the muck, as well as the triumph over it. The issue goes deeper than the depiction of muck anyway, spilling over into the film's overall pacing and transitioning between action and music. Another axiom, this one understood by musical theater enthusiasts, suggests dialogue becomes song when words aren't enough, and song gives way to dance when lyrics don't cut it. A couple of songs spring prematurely before the scenes have any time to build any emotional resonance. For one, She Be Mine, a ballad sung by young Celie about the loss of her babies. Still others end abruptly just as the song begins to ramp up, like Harpo's propulsive Building a House number Workin'. Even still, there's enough here to recommend it to anyone who's loved some previous version of the original story. This Color Purple reincarnation differs from many other remakes and reboots that have washed upon the public's shores. Its existence isn't merely a bid for nostalgia, though that's, of course, a piece of it, but an extension of an artifact that's deeply embedded and integral within Black America's cultural canon. It carries the weight of 4 decades worth of fierce debates, divergent interpretations, and scholarly analysis. Perhaps most notable of all, there's a deep and preserving connection to countless Black women and queer people who've seen themselves in this work about overcoming traumas. So I thought it was important to read a lot of that because I liked her perspective. And I think Aisha, I have listened to her a lot, so I regard her very highly. And she is a musical theater kid. So I really liked her being able to explain her take on some of the performances. And while I don't necessarily agree with her assessment necessarily, I do think it's nice to know that she actually does get musical theater.
She understands.
Yeah. Well, and I think the cultural reception is often something we struggle with, especially with older films. We have these questions of how did people receive this at the time that are hard to answer, and so it's so valuable to have a film that's now, but also have these cultural commentators who can write out in depth here's how the first one was received, here's how this one's being received. That sort of analysis I think is super valuable. I think that the question of the explicitness of the domestic violence, I see what she's saying about the slaps are so big that they're a little bit larger than life and takes out some of the reality of it. And I think it might be because it's a musical. If this gets too dark, I do think musicals can handle dark subjects.
Yeah.
But there might be a level of darkness where then you're like, you can't sing now. That's too much. Like we can't get into a song after this.
Yeah.
So it might have been a feeling that you can't get too. I mean, it's explicit. It's not like it's just implied that he's hitting her. He hits her many times on screen.
Yeah.
And I think there's always this question about violence on screen and how explicit do you get with it, and at what point are you just re-triggering, re-traumatizing, or even like normalizing or glorifying some sort of violence. And I think it's just really hard that I don't think you're ever going to get it perfectly right of like the how real do you get with violence? I think is a really hard question.
Yeah. At least they went with a direction that at least was cohesive with the rest of the film. You know, like they made them kind of big because they knew that like we have to, everything else is so big. So I feel like I like that a little bit more because at least I know that like, okay, there was a clear direction throughout, as opposed to like they were trying different things because they want to like check as much boxes as they could, which she does bring up that like there are attempts to obviously like kind of humanize the men a little bit more. I think like while you were reading that, like I thought of Harpo definitely of like, oh yeah, I could see them kind of use this character as a way to do that. So
I think too, the conversation about like how much joy is in the movie, I think
it's also very human to try and force ourselves to find joy
wherever we can,
especially in dire situations. And even, I mean, in She Be Mine, like we say it, like she's saying these words, even though she doesn't live in the place that she's speaking of.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and my impression of the original movie, again, someone should have watched it for this, but
I know someone will.
We should have watched it. Someone will comment and be like, "You are totally wrong with the tone of this." But like, my impression is that the ending is joyful in the original. I think that that's always there in every iteration. Is that the joy comes in the reunion? So I'm guessing that
totally.
I think that probably finding joy out of the muck is like always the story. And it's like, how deep in the muck do you get before you get to the joy is like probably the question that's being asked. Yeah.
And because it's in a musical format, like you have to suspend your disbelief in some way to be like any circumstance of joy to get us out of the muck has to exist just because we have to make it work.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important that the joy that we find in this movie comes from the people around Celie's life.
Yes.
It's not, Celie doesn't find joy in, it's not like she ends up making a career out of making clothes. At no point in this movie are you like, oh, she just goes to sew and that's when she like gets to be in her own little corner on a little chair and she finds joy in that. It's not, she doesn't find joy in the labor she has to do. She finds joy in the other people in her life who bring her something to be joyful about. Like,
yeah.
That scene when she goes to visit Sophia and Sophia's like, we're going to go sit and chat, make the tea. Like there's so much.
It's the first time she got to like, oh, I don't have to make the tea for myself.
Yeah.
Or for people.
Yeah. And I think if you make it too dark, I agree with what you're saying. I don't know how you jump back into like music like this.
Yeah.
And I think there's like an American, a Black American, that is the origin of gospel music, is finding joy when you are living a life that is joyless. Is how do you find joy in times like that? I think that is the light that the Black community has always and will always have. It's like they're able to find that, and
the resilience and the joy in the Black community is amazing. Yeah,
unparalleled. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm glad I read all that, and that was so long. I'm so sorry. Okay, Letterboxd. The people. What are the people saying? Well,
Ira,
fellow Loyola alum, Ira Madison III. Gave this movie 3.5 stars and said, Danielle Brooks is the mother I never had. She is the sister everybody would want. She is the friend that everybody deserves. I don't know a better best supporting actress contender. And that's true.
That's true.
And we should say it. Partna gave it 5 stars and said, I had the pleasure of sitting next to a white woman who went awe at the sad parts.
Innate need of like, I have to say something. I have to react.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then Rachel Leishman gave it 5 stars and said, when Fantasia sang I'm beautiful, my soul left my body.
Absolutely. I gave myself a headache because I cried so much when she sang I'm here.
To the woman who sat 2 seats down from me, not my mother, the other direction, who left at the beginning of I'm here.
That's when she chose to go to the bathroom.
That's when she chose to go to the bathroom and came back once it was over. I was like,
girl.
You got to hold in the piss, babe.
Your life is over.
I hope afterwards they were like, oh my God, that song Fantasia sang. They're like, which one? She's like, which song?
Oh my God.
She sang it the sister?
And to my mom, I do have to say this. To my mom, who on the drive back home, we get home and I'm like, yeah, and Fantasia was so good. And she goes, that was Fantasia? It's really iconic.
A lived in role.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She disappeared.
Absolutely.
Okay. RJ, you gave us our summary, so I'll let you go first.
Yay! Then we're just gonna go down the line. I'm picking Danielle Brooks. It is. I mean, even though I can't explain it. She truly was, as Molly said, was brought into this earth to play.
Danielle Brooks did the thing
to play this role in like this specific adaptation, this movie musical adaptation. She took us through a roller coaster. I mean, the scene of her knowing that she was going to like have to pay for what she just did. And so she just constantly is shouting, take care of my children, take care of my children.
Oh.
I mean, like, truly that should be enough to give this woman an Oscar. But it's not, because there's multiple scenes after that also prove it. So,
yeah.
That whole scene, I know we already talked about that scene, but the fact that she first says no, thank you. And then it's not, she doesn't start out with hell no. She is pushed to that point. Yeah. And then he hits her and she retaliates. I mean, like, she is not in the, I mean, like, it's bad, but at no point are you like, you instigated this situation. It's
in no way.
It's, and then to find out late, like, it's afterward when you find out it's been 6 years.
Oh my God.
Horrifying.
It's horrible.
Hi.
I mean, I want to pick Danielle Brooks, but RJ already did. So I will pick Taraji P. Henson. Didn't know she had this vocal performance in her. I did know that she had this level of magnetism, but just she lights up the screen and my whole life and my soul whenever she's on screen. And she was absolutely wonderful in the role, and she deserves lots of awards and accolades and attention for being absolutely the most fun part of the musical.
Yeah.
Would you have been also a real character?
Would you have been a full Shug stan? Would you have been like a Barb for Shug? Like,
I would have been a Barb for Shug. Yeah.
You would have been a full groupie. You would have been like defending Shug
at the juke.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
at the juke every night. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And she would notice and she'd see you.
She'd see you, Mama.
And we'd
have our Fred and Ginger moment in the theater.
She'd write you a record too.
Can't.
I want to pick Fantasia Barrino because I think she does a great job in this role, but I will actually end up picking I'm so sorry, Blitz Bazawule, the director of this film, because I think all aspects come together so harmoniously. It is so realized what the vision is. The fantasy scenes, they're so trusting of the audience. It's so good. The cinematography is beautiful. I just like so much of this movie comes together in just the right way to make it so good that I'm very impressed with this director.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I should have looked up if he's done, or if they've done, he did The Burial of so this isn't his first narrative piece, I guess, but yeah, he's great. It's good.
But I think it is really interesting that he has such a music video background. And I do think that this suggests that we should look more to people with a music video experience and background, because being able to capture music on film is really an essential skill of musical theater.
Yeah. And this is his third film. His first film is called The Burial of Kojo, and he's Ghanaian. I think it's Ghanaian. He's from Ghana.
Yeah.
So it's a film from Ghana. So this is like his first kind of narrative American film, which is great. It's great. And for someone who did not grow up in America, I felt like was really able to capture the beauty of the American landscape in a very specific way. I thought it was very well done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Molly, closer.
I couldn't think of one. I really try, but it just felt, everything felt like disrespectful.
Here's Molly's closer this week. What scene do you write to add to this film that allows you to feel like Mr. Atoned?
Okay. I think he needs to be kind to a child. He needs to exhibit empathy for someone who he views as not having power and that cannot do anything for him. He needs to see an unknown child on the street who needs
pants,
an apple, and he buys the child the apple. I don't know. This is a terrible off the cuff, but I think rather than having him paired up with another woman, because I don't like that we have to worry about her in any way. Yeah. I think we should see him.
So now we should worry about a child.
Generous. Be generous to a child who is not going to have a long-term relationship with him. He just is just being nice to someone who can't do anything for him. That's what I need.
I think I would have been okay with a scene where Sophia is like, when she says like, there's gonna be some changes around here. Let's see what those changes were.
Yeah.
Let's see him maybe struggle a little bit with those changes, but like kind of learn from them. Listen to Sophia. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He like, she disses him, but he doesn't like do something she told him to do.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That I think like kind of like a deeper conversation maybe with him and Harpo, because it does feel like that's the only person that he at least like will listen to. And I almost wish that maybe in that scene of him kicking him out of the juke, I know that he's like wasted, but I almost wish that Harpo kind of like is like, we don't want you here anymore. Like, you're done.
Or because we talked about how we kind of don't get too much of like what is Harpo and Sophia's relationship after the dinner scene. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a scene where Harpo tells his dad about how he now relates to his wife and how it's so much better than what it was before. And it's like the younger generation teaching the older generation about actually having an equal relationship.
Yeah. I also like in that dinner scene too, we didn't really say this earlier, but I like that Mr.'s dad does not go without getting something lobbed, like an insult lobbed his way too. Because it is generation. And I'm not saying
absolutely
you can't unlearn things or that it's not your responsibility to unlearn things, but it didn't start with Mr.
Yeah. Right.
It started with Mr.
Adam, do you have a modification to make?
I already said mine.
Mm-hmm. Is that?
I went second.
Oh, I thought I went second. What was yours?
Molly, this is what I do. I said a scene where Sophia, after she says there's going to be some changes.
Oh, I thought you were
see the changes.
I thought you were
see the changes.
I thought you were just like, yes, Andy. I didn't know that was your official answer.
Mine was be kind to a child. How is this the changes Sophia made a yes and to
that?
Wow. We did it. Congrats to everybody involved with this movie.
Absolutely.
I hope she sweeps some awards.
I hope she gets something.
I do. I feel like they're going to put a lot of their eggs on the Danielle Brooks basket, but I do hope Fantasia gets the accolades that she deserves, because she really does do a great job of living in this.
Also, Best Original Song is going to be stacked this year because we also have fucking Barbie as well. Mm-hmm. That has a couple songs that'll probably get nominated. So
Wonka,
everybody's favorite Wonka. Yeah.
Well,
I'm beautiful. Yes, I'm beautiful. And I'm here. Oh, yes, I am.
Thank you for listening to the best revival of a podcast, Showgays. You can find us on social media. Adam is at Adam Noecker on Twitter. RJ is at RJ Food Rocks on Instagram. And Molly is at Molly Matiny on Instagram. This episode was edited and mixed by Adam Noecker. This has been an Ampliverse production. You can find our show page and more information at theampliverse.com. If you'd like to send us your own takes on the movie we just watched, reach out to us via email and we might read it aloud on the show. Our email is showgaysmoviemusical@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to help others find the show. And now, as always, the show must go on, so stick around to hear what we're going to be watching next episode.
Oh, hell no!
Move. Hey, PG-13, please. What was that?
Oh, Lord, it's the Queen Bee.
Regina George.
Don't look her in the eye!
You could be really hot if you change, like, everything.
I met a guy in the summer and I left him in the spring.
Welcome to Health and Human Sexuality. We'll be getting into abstinence, of course, then followed by in the spring, condoms and choking.
You're learning things now that I don't know how to teach.
Are you okay in there? We're concerned you're either doing drugs or having a toilet baby.
Ew. We as women have to be able to support each other. Get in, loser.
Welcome, Katie. You're never gonna believe what I found this morning. Your burn book.
Mom, go make snacks.
For sure, Regina, yeah.
Do you like gum?
Sure.
Oh, no, I don't have any. I was just...
You're a mess.
We will help you, Katie. Why are you dressed so scary?
It's Halloween.
Katie, if you don't dress slutty, that is slut-shaming us.
That's just unprofessional.
What? What's this?
We're gonna make her pay.
All we've done is make Regina hotter and revive the wet look.
Dance break.
Who wrote all this junk?
Katie pushed her.
Regina really should be lifting through her glutes.
Look at this thing. I can't even see it.
Like a face breast.
Je m'appelle Katie. Incorrect.
You have to pick a French name.
Chanel.
No.
Celine Dion.
No.
Beyonce.
Discovering voices. Building worlds. The Ampliverse.